giving the floor to City Manager Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. Each year, the City Commission gathers for a half-day goal-setting session. The primary purpose, from a staff perspective, is to gauge the Commission's priorities in advance of the budget season. It's also to provide to the Commission, to the public, to staff, sort of an update again on what we've done over the last year with the adopted goals from what would have been 2017-2018. So as we go through these goals, we'll not only talk about new initiatives for the year, but we'll sort of give an update of what we've done, and maybe even some decisions that you made last year during budget session that helped us accomplish some of these goals. I think that'll be apparent in items such as some of the law enforcement goals that we had last year, and how we made those priorities during the budget season, and those are enacted now, and a lot of those are actually in the works. So we'll try to show that this document does guide budget decisions, it does guide city staff action, and it provides results for the areas that the Commission so chooses to focus on. So again, sort of the format that we followed previously is, as we go through these, for instance, a good one to start with when we get into the categories and we hit the first one, pursue development of a new business park. It's a good thing in the times that we're able to cross that off. The business park is going to be done here within the next 3 months, and that was something that had been on here, I think, for about 5 years, I think maybe 4 years. I have to go back and look exactly, but we've worked in that direction through staff action, through budget action, to achieve that goal. So then typically what we do is we would stop after each subcategory, and the Commission would talk about new areas they'd like to explore in those sections, and if there's a consensus, we'll add those. Following, typically what we do is staff will get together, we'll talk about what the Commission added, what they took off, what they changed, and then at some point in the future, these will come back to the Commission for adoption at a meeting as our official City Commission goals or action items. So if that's the direction you'd like to go, we'll start through that, or if you'd like to do anything else first.
I think the format that we'll go with is what we have gone with in the past. All of these sections start with economic development, community improvement, public safety, etc., roadways, outreach and transparency. What's the last one? Other items receiving general support. We'll use this as the boilerplate. We'll add and subtract from them. But I think those are the areas that we should concentrate on. Then there will be time that as commissioners want to add or subtract things from it or put different items in it. They'll fit in probably one of these 6 or 7 categories. One thing I think we had discussed in a previous meeting was up to individuals, commissioners, whether they wanted to do this or not, was kind of asked to come to this meeting with a vision statement or something that you have for the city. And I'll start off with mine. Mine has remained the same. I've said it infinite number of times in the last 9 years. And my vision for Leavenworth has been and remains make Leavenworth a better place to live, work, invest, and raise a family. And I still believe that. And having said that, that means outstanding visual appearance of the town, great police and fire safety, good streets, etc. Always trying to make Leavenworth better. That is my goal, my vision for the city. Does anyone else have a vision statement they care to share at this time, just to start it off?
Mine is basically what we're covering in our goal setting.
Okay.
We, as we developed this from way back when, it's everybody's vision of the city that they wanted to see that developed this goal setting. And that's what I consider my vision.
I would like to see in 10 years a vision. As far as a vision goes, it's like if you were to look around you, it's what you would see if you were here 10 years from now. And what I would see is a more safe, secure community with successful activities for youth and success for accessibility, a healthy community that and better transportation options.
Thank you. Mr. Griswold?
Yeah, I took the mayor up on his direction or guidance if we wanted to bring a vision. If you could bring it up, I think you have copies,
On your vision.
yeah, on the vision. But I was gonna project it up, but this won't take 20 minutes, this will take 5 minutes or less, but, so when it comes up, I'll start.
I like the word veterpreneurs.
Yeah, I hear that with increasing frequency. So, this is the vision, my draft vision that I would like to discuss, that I'm presenting, and I would like to discuss. In terms of the top two blocks, in terms of the preserve the core, this is what we stand for and why we exist. My view on what the city commission stands for and why we exist. And then in terms of stimulating progress, what we're talking about here is an envisioned future, setting forth what we aspire to become, to achieve, to build. You've all commented on that. I think we're in general agreement. What I've done here is document our core values, upper left portion of the chart. We can discuss those. Obviously, I come with somewhat of a bias in terms of my experience, but I see a lot of these things being the values of the commission. You may not agree with all of them, but that's what I propose in terms of our core values. City Commission core purpose, believe it's self-explanatory. I mean, it kind of very similar to what Mark had just talked about in terms of his vision. I see it more as a core purpose, but I think it is important that we're the best hometown in at least Kansas to work, live, play, learn, visit, and raise a family. And maybe we add the term invest. That's not a bad idea that Mark had as part of his statement. Going down to the future, stimulate progress. When I talked about a month and a half ago, we talked about a big audacious goal. That's what I have there, Leavenworth, first city of Kansas, and the emphasis on the family-friendly and welcoming community that is best in class in appearance. And we are, the best in class for us in Kansas is that we're a city in the kind of the first city.
City of the first class.
City of the first class, and that's what I was kind of talking about here. Welcoming community that is best in class in appearance, image, infrastructure, public safety, support to youth, and growth. And what we're talking about growth, just increasing economic opportunities for businesses and citizens alike. And then finally, an envisioned future, vivid description, a word picture. This was my word picture. Is everything in there that needs to be in there? I'm not sure. I think as I got finished with it, I thought maybe we should put something in there about our senior citizens, which is not in there, but I think you can read it. I thought I would resonate or get some feedback in terms of a modern-day Mayberry, a family-friendly and welcoming, medium-sized hometown with the amenities of larger cities and a beautiful and thriving downtown. And then I'm talking the same things that you are. City with safe and clean streets, neighborhoods, public parks and facilities, modern roads, bridges, sanitary sewer and stormwater systems, and a city that values its excellent schools and hospitals. And we do have some great hospitals and healthcare systems in this city. World-class public library, which I believe it is, public parks, sports and recreation programs, a city that encourages innovation and growth, with a reputation as a center of excellence for entrepreneurs and veterpreneurs. And the reason I put that in there, I did attend that Main Street National Conference last week, and there were a lot of presentations on ways that hometowns have been implementing to try to get entrepreneurs to come in and start businesses. I thought they were very good presentations. I have some slides that I could share, not in this meeting, but later with the commissioners. But we've got, Fort Leavenworth, we've got St. Mary, we've got a great school system here within the public school system. So I think this could be an incubator for entrepreneurs, and maybe it is already, but let's build on that. And then the veterpreneurs, just the fact that many of these soldiers, when they leave the service out of Fort Leavenworth, are staying in the local area, and maybe we could set some conditions to make it easier for them to start a new business, a new and innovative business within Leavenworth. So that's it. I did want to go unless, you can put them all up. Just very quickly, I think the commission and the city manager did a great job last year in terms of the goals. I saw them, Paul showed me a copy of them when I, met with him after the election in November. My only criticism, and it's constructive criticism, was that there were categories and they weren't really goals. So categories of economic development, public safety. I thought the actions and the implementing actions were generally very good. But what I put here on this first slide, 1 of 2, is just how I would reword some of those strategic goals to tie in with the vision that I just presented. And this is part of the strategic alignment. But so I just present this very quickly as an example of how we could maybe word the goals, because the way they are right now is more categories than goals. Next slide. This was number 2. And once again, you can see, I think, the alignment that I have to the vision that I'm proposing. And also, this ties into the categories that were in the goals from last year and that are part of the packet that Paul gave us for 2018. Next. And this is just an action plan example, just in terms of a little more structure to the action plan. And this is just an example. I took the strategic goal of approach policing, fire prevention, and emergency preparedness in a manner that builds trust, encourages public participation, lowers crime, and fosters city preparedness and resiliency. This isn't all the actions, but I put 5 actions that I thought would support this particular strategic goal. Some of them are from the plan that the commission and the city manager developed last year. Some of them are from because Paul did some research after my presentation a month and a half ago and showed me some good vision and some good plans from a city in Oregon and a city in Florida. And so I got a little bit of some inspiration from looking at those plans. But you have to have the action, you have to know who's in charge in terms of having the primary responsibility to follow through and implement the action. A timeline is in the 3rd column, and then the metric. Without metrics, it really doesn't hold much teeth and you can't measure your progress. So that's what the 4th and last column is addressing. So that would be just a way we could structure the implementing actions or activities. Subject to questions, that's it.
Any questions right now?
Yeah, this is great. I like the way you laid it out. And these goals are more long-range goals. You have your long-range goals, but you also have your short-term goals, which is what we're really doing today, correct?
And I echo what Mr. Bowers, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Yeah, what she's saying, you have a lot of long-term and short-term. One of the primary purposes of the goal-setting session is to give the city manager direction on where the commission wants him and his staff to expend the budget dollars as we go into budgeting season. When they leave this meeting, they'll start the budget preparation. What we see as the places where we want that money to be spent judiciously, depending on what our decisions are. So we do need those short-term goals, with long-term goals are obviously very good too. Your turn, Commissioner.
Mine is the City of Leavenworth vision is to be a diverse, safe, clean, progressive city, representing family values, supports our local businesses, and help meet the needs of others.
Thank you. Okay, so we have those, so keeping with the same format we've had, let's just go by categories, and then we can add and subtract, work on these, everybody can have some input on them. First item is economic development, and as the goals that you see on your pages right now are the ones that we established last year, even though they say goals for 2018-19, these were 17-18 goals. And the first one was pursue development of a new business park. That's been completed. Let's look at each one under A on business attraction, retention, and expansion. Decide if we want to keep those or delete them. If we want to keep them, we'll keep them. If we want to delete them, we'll delete them. Then we'll go back and add our own thoughts are. 2, lobby and advocate for federal funding for a new medium security prison and increase maintenance funding for existing federal prison. City Manager Kramer and I are going to D.C. in a couple days, and I know Bureau of Prisons will be visiting with them as well as our legislative contingent, or Congresswoman and Congressman Yoder's office, Senator Moran, and Senator Roberts' office. This still remains on our radar, very, very high on our radar. We would like for that prison to be built. From what we understand, Bureau of Prisons, they wanted two. The last plan was a $380 million build, and that will be the biggest build in the Kansas City area since the Sprint campus, not the Sprint Center. It's bigger than the Sprint Center. It'd be the Sprint campus. So the amount of jobs that would bring to local industry, local trades, as well as the number of staff positions that would bring to the federal prison. I can't remember right offhand, that in our briefing books, what was the staffing going to be? I know 1,400 beds, but in theory, I mean, 400, you know, I don't want to say senior civil, not senior civil service, not SES jobs, but civil service jobs all the way up. And the other thing that this brings, it makes the federal prison then, you know, Vernon Field Schools, is it a campus or a complex? Thank you, Mr. Richmeyer. Right now, Leavenworth Federal Prison and the Honor Farm there are a prison. So if you work there 3 or 4 years, you want to get promoted, you got to move to Lexington, Kentucky, or Lompoc, California, wherever you go, and move back. The federal prison system requires a lot of moves. If it is a complex, they could, in theory, stay their entire career moving between those 3 sites, and each one would be considered a PCS move or a career move. And federal prison, Bureau of Prisons does want that because they're having trouble getting employees willing to move every 2 and 3 years, pick up their family, and pull their kids out of school, move here, sell their house, do that back and forth. In my opinion, I think that we do keep the lobbying for the prison on this, but I'll take Commissioner's input.
I agree.
Do we want to
Yes.
keep that as one of the goals?
Yes.
Yeah, my only thing is, is it a new medium security prison, or is this medical facility we've been taught? Are we gonna,
So.
same thing?
Well,
Okay.
I did reach back out to the BOP just to confirm, and it is a prison.
Okay.
May it have some different medical options? Yes, but they sort of
Okay.
resist calling it any kind of medical
Yeah,
facility.
Yeah.
but one of the original plan is 1,400 beds, 1,100, which would be dialysis, wasn't it dialysis bed?
Originally, but I don't think that I mean, there may be some dialysis services, but they really want to resist that,
Yeah,
the
the big,
dialysis hospital.
the big medical facility for the federal prison system is in Springfield, Missouri. They keep that as
Okay.
the medical, but this one,
We don't want to be that specific either.
yeah.
It's a
But I'm
medium
wondering what the
security
need is of the Bureau of Prisons. I mean, is it they must need more space for prisoners. Is that a good assumption?
Our prison, I don't know if I just toured it just
Yeah.
recently, and it needs a lot of work. I mean,
Okay.
it's.
Because it's not a
obviously
replacement,
safe,
though.
but
Well, it's not a
It's not a
replacement at all.
replacement.
It's a supplement. It's a
It would be a
supplement.
supplement.
I'm just
what's
looking
there.
to, so we can strengthen our argument with respect. It's not us.
It's providing jobs.
It's providing jobs.
Providing jobs.
And making it a complex for Bureau of
Okay.
Prisons for career growth, easier for them.
But they have to want it as much as we do. That's my point. in
Oh, they
terms of-
want it more than we do.
Yes,
We see the Bureau of
absolutely.
Prisons, they
But they-
cannot.
Okay.
They can't lobby it. We
They
have to
can't,
do
they
that.
can't call senators and say what they do. We
Right.
go
Yeah.
see them, we go see the senators, and then senators tells their
Right.
staff, give those guys
I
a
was just
call,
trying-
they call, and
yeah.
they run over them.
I was just trying to be a little
Yeah,
bit more
yeah.
specific in terms of what the need is, so when we go and talk to our elected representatives, we know, maybe with a little more specificity, why it's so important for the Bureau of Prisons to have this additional.
Yeah.
I believe it is, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that, and everything I've seen, I think we can be a little bit more specific and hard-hitting with respect to why this addition to the Bureau of Prisons needs to be made. That's my only point on that.
Word number one.
I
The
know.
next one to be
Getting
built.
a prison until
Yeah.
Kentucky
Right, I
came
know,
up.
I know.
And they built it in southeastern Kentucky, and Bureau of Prisons says they're having a tough time getting career employees willing to pick up the family and go to East
And there's so
Armpit,
many
Kentucky.
reasons that it would be a great, in terms of our history, our tradition, and so I just was trying to strengthen
Okay.
and just trying to figure out.
And the qualified employees are already here.
That, yeah,
Yeah.
we
So
talked, right,
that's a
we
big
talked
thing.
about that. So just emphasizing those important points as you guys talk to the elected representatives, I think that's my point as far as the new prison.
Okay, next item is support recommendations from the 27 Committee for Global Security and Innovations. I'll let everyone weigh in on this. I think the 27 Committee is, I don't know if they've reinvented themselves or going through a reorganization of some kind. I'm willing to support recommendations on global security and innovations as it pertains to Fort Leavenworth. Their original charter was to, for me to paraphrase, is to support the mission of Fort Leavenworth and try to get more business, if you will, to Fort Leavenworth. I think there's been a new executive director installed, and they kind of spun off a little bit on this Veterans Center, which I don't think has received any traction. I'm still conditionally in support of the 27 Committee as it relates to bringing more activity on Fort Leavenworth that supports the U.S. Army, Department of Defense, and the national security of the United States. But I'll take comments from other.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I support it.
I'm fine with it. They're in the midst of some type of campaign to raise funds to build this, an innovation center, right? Someplace in Leavenworth. So, I mean, that's their, but I'm
Yeah.
supportive of that.
Yeah.
And this may be the time, you know, I had mentioned in my vision, entrepreneurs and veterpreneurs. I don't have a specific recommendation or a specific goal, but maybe there's some things we could do to really stimulate, you know, and set the conditions for entrepreneurs and veterpreneurs to really take a hard look at Leavenworth as a place where they could start new businesses. And so I don't have a specific thing, but I think that some, I don't know what it would be, but some mentioned that maybe working with the transition office over there on Fort Leavenworth is some way we could just say that we're here, we're forward thinking, and that this would be a great place for a vet or an entrepreneur to start a business. So I don't have anything more specific than that, but I think somewhere we need to have that as a goal or an action underneath this category of economic development.
Okay. So we're
Could you sort of restate?
we will support the recommendations from the 27 Committee as they pertain to the increased activity on Fort Leavenworth in support of United States Army, Department of Defense, and the national security. Their primary charter was to, one, increase the visibility of Fort Leavenworth to the Kansas City area, which they have accomplished. The amount of money the $2.8, $3 billion, $5 billion, whatever it might be annually, that they're responsible for in the Kansas City area. People throughout the area on the Kansas, Missouri side are familiar with that now. Anything that they can do to sell Fort Leavenworth to Department of the Army staff, Department of Defense, to bring more schools, Army schools, military schools to Fort Leavenworth, to, you know, add to the employment and add to that, as long as it is in support of bringing more business is not the proper word, but business to Fort Leavenworth.
And then the second thing I heard from Commissioner Griswold as a separate item potentially, if I heard this correctly, was something along the lines of explore or support programs or projects that encourage veterpreneur, military transition type services within the community.
Yeah,
sort of open that niche as us exploring those types of
And
things.
that
I
would
can
be
work
at
on
the
that.
end of this. That's not with the 27 Committee. That's
Right,
a
that's
separate,
our own.
yeah, that's a
our-
separate one
our
that
own
we'll add
through
after
our-
we get through all those.
Through our
Yeah.
Did I capture that?
I think that's fine, and it can be refined as we go along, but yes,
Right.
I think we just need to.
Is there a consensus on that or any discussion on that?
Yes.
Next item, let's go through those 1 through 5 items, see which ones we want to keep, then we want to delete, and then let's add so we can stay on that. Next, and so we're going to support the 27 Committee as we stated. Next item, explore options to market a new business park in city in general.
Can I add to that one
Sure.
before you go? So yesterday, we received a proposal. Taylor, Tedder, Steve, Jack, and I met with a company called Newmark Grubb Zimmer. The commission probably knows them as Zimmer Corporation, big development, commercial real estate firm in Kansas City. And we do have a proposal that I've agreed to with them to do just that, to do a market analysis to do a complete look at all the real estate business deals that have been done in the entire metro area, to give us an analysis of land cost, incentive bases, and to do this type of work for us in advance of the business park opening. It's a 45-day turnaround that they have on that, so we've agreed in principle. Once we get the documents, I'll sign that. So that was just something I wanted to add that just happened yesterday that I haven't had a chance to brief the commission of.
So would that become an action, a more specific action?
Yeah, I wouldn't,
I don't know if it would if it would be kind of a subset of that, or, I mean, cause you went ahead and explored options.
That wouldn't be
Right,
a
so-
goal. I mean, that would be
So-
part of our goal.
Would be the specifics of the.
So, we're past the point of exploring, and maybe that's something that we add, let's delete that one, but we'll add in,
we can continue, yeah.
yeah,
But
follow up on that.
one's been explored
Yeah.
and
Okay, we're gonna delete that as is. Then the next item, support local destination transportation efforts for the city. I know Commissioner Bowder's been deeply involved, with, this one, and I'm sure you want to
Okay.
keep that as a
Oh,
primary
definitely.
goal.
And
Yeah.
something new that just came up, our Kansas City Area Transit Authority will be meeting, or trying to set a meeting up with Fort Leavenworth, because the new airport plan, as part of the grant funding, are requiring public transportation from the airport to key areas, and they actually brought up at our last KCATA meeting, so that's public knowledge, because it was at the meeting, that that would include Fort Leavenworth, so they want to meet with Fort Leavenworth to see what the need is here, and try to figure out some way to provide transportation from the airport to Fort Leavenworth, so.
Maybe we can get Kansas City to push Platte City on
Yeah, that might be
the roadway.
on the roadway.
Highway 45? Platte County?
45, 92.
That's, 92, yeah. Platte County?
I'm supportive of, I'm sorry, go ahead, Larry, I'm sorry.
Good, I'm done.
No, I think it's good, but once again, I would probably get a little bit more specific in terms of, I think we need to have a couple of study sessions or something to see what, our next steps.
Well,
with
I think
respect-
we will. I mean,
Okay.
we've already talked about that at one
Okay.
of our last meetings,
Okay.
so.
Well, that would be, I mean, because some of these, yeah, okay. I
Yeah,
mean,
we
it's an
talked about
action in
having-
support of this particular goal, but I'm just saying that I'm ready to do that. It was a good study, and we need to, see what we want to do as a commission. And I don't know whether the county has a role or not in this. I know you
I
think
think
they
that's
do.
something we need to look at when we talk to the county
But-
too, because initially when I was appointed by the county, they wanted me to head up a group within Leavenworth County to study the issue as well. So I don't know what their plan is now, but I mean, in the paper, they said they weren't interested, so we'll have to see what they say.
Didn't he say?
What they
hadn't
say,
been-
you know, that
Did
it's a
he
city-
say, wasn't
city-
it, he said,
city
I don't know
issue.
anything about it?
It's a
or-
city
or-
issue.
Yeah, I know.
Well-
Yeah, I think you need to get in front of them, or somebody from ATA.
I got a question.
Well,
Yes, sir.
So just say that if the county doesn't participate, is there any way that the city could possibly come up with its own transportation system locally?
Yes, the city could take what essentially was phase one of what was designed to be a countywide multi-phase project, and phase
just do it.
one.
Yeah.
You're bearing the cost alone, and then the natural growth out of that is phase two, phase three, phase two. It was never designed to be contained within the city, and I don't think that that's what KCATA and Mark, that's not what they do. They're all about regional connection and exploring opportunities, rather than doing that. But yes, you could, but it's not, I don't think wasn't the intent of the study or the program.
The intent was, start it here and go through the county, KCATA would help support it. But if it's just a local intra-city bus system or transport system, I don't know if KCATA would,
I don't know, and then.
yeah, but
The
that
county does
wasn't,
not-
their plan was going that. Somehow we have to get the county's involvement in that, and
Well, I'd asked if they were set up to do a program, and the county said no, they hadn't set up a program to
We've
do
reached
the
out
presentation.
multiple times.
Yeah.
Well, it could be on our agenda when we have that future meeting. with the
That's
county.
what I'm thinking
Yeah,
as
I
well.
think it will be.
Well, Mike pointed out a while ago about the entrepreneurial
Yeah.
for, you know, the new vets or the retiring vets. I don't see why this couldn't be private or public-private.
Yeah.
Why should the city invest all that money
Makes
Yeah.
a point.
from Leavenworth to from Fort Leavenworth, basically to KCI?
Yeah, I was just looking for things that, in terms of the entrepreneurs and vetrepreneurs, I was just suggesting that we support that, and it is more public-private. I mean, and I wasn't suggesting any specific thing that would cost the city money at this point with respect to any of that, but, I just think that there's a fertile ground here for people who have those skills and experience and may want to take some risk and start businesses within Leavenworth, but,
So I guess a more specific goal, what I would offer is something along the lines of push for implementation of the KCA TA Regional County Transit Plan. And then action items in
I'd love
that
to
is
see
get
that,
in front
yeah.
of the county, devote funding, devote resources. So we've supported it, we got the study that we wanted.
Right.
And now the next step is to push for implementation of the plan.
Would you agree with that? Yeah. Now, okay, then we had two items I know that we wanted to add to this. One was the entrepreneur, vetrepreneur, I don't know, we said a center of excellence or something that helps entice entrepreneurs and vetrepreneurs to come here. Maybe we put that in writing. I do believe that we do have those things in place. I don't know how well they're known. And just stating it, you know, we can get follow-ups, whether it be quarterly or something from economic development, from, where's Taylor? There's Taylor.
That's fine.
On what's going on, but, I think that's good, because we do have, you know, some programs, we can't solve everybody's
Right.
problem, but we do have some programs, and maybe they're not as well known as they should be. And, reach out to, you know, Fort Leavenworth obviously is an outstanding resource to their transition office, and maybe you do meet with those folks right now, if you can, give them more information. We may get some inquiries from people coming off the fort, and they don't just have to be people from the fort, they're
right,
from anybody, can do that. And there's plenty of other veterans help organizations that will help, veterans, you know, start up businesses, small business loans, et cetera.
Okay.
But that's one thing, and an entrepreneur's
Yep. I'll word that, work on wording for it.
And the other one is, your item 4, which we completed, but, we
Can
want
I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead. On which one?
Item 4.
Okay.
New business, Park City in general.
Yeah, that's the one where you want to do the, implement the Zimmer plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
but hopefully, I mean, just a thought, in the Zimmer plan, I don't know what all that would include, but with Fairfield growing, expanding, with the possibility of Abernathy expanding with other people living downtown, the lofts, the other hotels, I really would like to see something on here about a grocery store in North Leavenworth somewhere. Somewhere, there's gotta be land and somebody that might be interested in doing something, and I want to have that on here.
Okay.
If you all
I
agree with that.
agree, and that was one part of, one of my goals, I don't know if you, but that, I agree, would agree on that.
Cause I mean, maybe it doesn't look like it would now, but I mean, it is
Yeah.
expanding, we're expanding as we speak. And
Uh,
the number of people that live in North.
So number 4, you said complete is written, and then we're changing it to
Yes.
implement the Zimmer plan or
Yeah.
evaluate it.
Well, we know what the Zimmer plan is.
Yeah,
Right.
or not, implement's
I'm not gonna implement it until I know what it is.
Yeah, implement's probably not the right
Yeah.
word, since they've got 45 days, but, to evaluate the Zimmer plan, that has been commissioned, for lack of a better term.
And I know that this Zimmer plan that we're doing is a marketing plan, but it's really a market analysis plan, and I know LCDC is also doing a marketing, a countywide marketing, so we'll include that as part of our marketing efforts.
And one other item, to Commissioner Bowder's point, I think there was consensus that we put a bullet point in there to radically recruit a grocery store for someplace north of Spruce.
It's
Like,
good,
yeah,
I'd be good with that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, north of Spruce
You
is
know,
good.
off and do some evaluation on how we can
Yeah,
incent
we had a
that.
promise of one up there, but it never came through.
Right, I mean, you know.
They're in Seneca.
Yeah,
What about one for downtown? Just throwing it out. I'm just
well,
throwing it
grocery
out.
stores that
Just
I've
space.
talked with,
Yeah.
one, they look at traffic count, two, they look at, you know, the footprint, and you have to have parking.
Yeah.
So,
I was just looking at
I'm
all
just
the,
thinking most of them are gonna say, yeah, that sounds good, but, you know, they gotta make money, and people, I mean, there's some people that walk there, but they do want a place with decent amount of parking, and there's footprints up in North Leavenworth that probably are
Right.
available, if it fits their business model.
yeah, I was just thinking, I mean, because there's been a lot of growth with these lofts and everything, and there seems to be, I would think that there'd be an increasing population, or increased population within the downtown, but I just throw that out there as
You got
something
the
that
other
we
half
could.
of the OKCJC store down there that Greenmeyer owns, which is vacant.
Yeah,
So over the
Which
past,
would be an ideal place for downtown for a smaller grocery store.
right,
Not like Walmart or
oh,
Dillon's
yeah,
or.
yeah.
over the past year, I've actually worked with a group of citizens that were interested in bringing a grocery store to North Leavenworth, and they actually got so far as engaging grocery store Save a Lot and their site selection team, and we met with them. They came in here. They love Leavenworth. They would love to put a store here. However, they'd like to put it near where Price Chopper or Dillon's is.
Yeah.
And they also evaluated the Country Mart location. But I think that, and they also looked at downtown. The parking is an issue because they need somewhere to put all the carts and everything like that. But I think there are some options that may be different now, and maybe more viable. So we can
Yeah.
definitely.
131, is it 131 lofts at Abernathy?
137.
What?
137.
Well, quite a few. And, you know, other things that, you know, hopefully, I know right now, the business, all the requests or entreaties we've had with various grocery stores, they come back, 'cause it doesn't quite fit our model unless we go head to head with Price Chopper out there. Well, we want it up here. Maybe with the demographics changing, maybe they'll relook it, but we should encourage that, and that's one thing we have to sell, is that we do have a population shift, or possibly is going there, and maybe it will support their business model.
And I think another component of that bullet point where it says marketing of the city in general, the CVB is constantly increasing our advertising efforts. So we're doing more billboards, we're doing more online advertising, and just bringing more people to Leavenworth in general, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, good,
Good.
thank you. Okay, any other on, section A, business attraction, retention, and expansion? Now we'll move on to, downtown development and revitalization. First item is explore rezoning resource allocation options that would focus on commercial development at Fourth, from Seneca to Metropolitan. Mr. Kramer, Ms. Hurley.
I don't have a whole lot to report on that. That's a really challenging area. We really resisted proactively rezoning, because then you're getting into restrictions. Julie just did a letter this week for a property that was not zoned commercial, but that could be. So she indicated that the city would not be opposed to proposals of economic development. So we do that kind of stuff, but that's kind of where it ended kind of last time, is the idea that proactively rezoning, you can't stop a gas station from coming in, or a fast food restaurant if you do that. And then, other than that, you could let the development community know that we would accept proposals, or we'd be interested, but it's hard.
So
Much more than
by
that.
not rezoning it immediately, I don't want to say we can pick and choose, but we can
You take them
deny
on the
some
development.
applications. But
Right.
if we rezone, we cannot deny applications unless they're doing an illegal
If it's,
activity.
yeah, if it's allowed by
restricted
right,
activity.
then you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. So is this one that we want to keep on there? Do we need
Well, it'd be a good place for a food store.
Yeah. And by exploring rezoning resource allocation options, you know,
I'd leave it on.
when those folks come to us, I think that one stays right there, because that's when we would,
Well, I don't think you would need to leave this on here for us to, talk to grocery stores about areas that weren't zoned commercial.
okay.
We do that all the time now. We'll talk with developers about properties that are not zoned commercial, because we talk about the ability to rezone. So that's something that staff automatically does with developments. We'll explore all properties.
Okay. So should we, what's the
If
commission
they're
feel,
doing that,
remove it, or?
Then go ahead and remove it.
Let's see.
Or remove it? Okay, but, yeah, that doesn't mean that they won't do it, but, just, we'll remove this one.
As a goal.
We got a consensus?
Yes.
Do we- next item, plan and pursue future downtown northeast TIF area improvement projects.
We're doing that now.
Miss Hurley, did we cut you off? Were you gonna say something? Okay.
We've scheduled and rescheduled a presentation to the commission for a Northeast TIF area improvement project. So Taylor and I have been working on that for about 6 months, and we're getting close to having a presentation to the commission on that. The downtown TIF just includes, it does include the area around there, so that allows us to do maybe some streetscaping, some parking lot improvements, but that hotel is gonna have to start generating funds over the next couple years before that's really a possibility. But those are our two TIF districts. We are exploring developments in the Northeast right now. So maybe over the next year, we'd like to see a development proposal and a project startup in that area.
Great.
A lot of that's dependent on the developers, though. It's
Yeah.
hard for staff to move those any faster than the development process normally occurs.
Just for the two new commissioners, maybe you already understand this, if you do, cut me off. If it's TIF district, let's say the new hotel here, the Hilton, the Home 2, if, when it was, the dump that it was, generated $50,000 a year in taxes, and that included the city, county, and the school board. If we make it a TIF district, when the new hotel generates $100,000 in taxes, to make it a TIF district, we have to get agreement from the county, the school board, and obviously us, that the increase from 50,000 to 100,000, or anything over the original taxes that we get, goes into the development of that district. It doesn't go into the building of that hotel. It goes into improving the streets, streetscape, lights, sidewalks, things like that, to make the area nicer. The three taxing entities still get their base amount, that $50,000, and I'm grabbing 50,000 just for an example. But if any one of those three entities, or the school board or the county says, nope, we don't want to take part in the TIF, we can't grant a TIF. But for the most part, they always have been, because they, and the TIF lasts for 10 or 20 years. How long is the one downtown?
20.
20. And then after that, it gets distributed among the three entities. But that money, all the real estate taxes that are produced from there, have over the base amount, that the incremental increase goes into improvements within that district, within the constraints of that district.
Well, this has been very successful, right? I mean, in recent years, the Hampton Inn, Home 2 Suites, what about this B&B Theaters? Is that different?
No, yeah, and not the Hampton, the two
Okay.
up north.
Okay.
And then the other TIF district is the Home 2 Suites.
Yeah, Hampton, historical tax.
But we should leave
Oh,
this
yeah.
in here, right?
I think so.
Now, the only other thing I had was, there are some other financial incentive tools that you have. Could those other tools be applied to the downtown, or?
And they have.
Okay.
Yep, we did a CID for the Home 2 Suites, which is a community improvement district. So we use all those tools.
Yeah, and the new theater renovation, they took advantage of
I was just saying, to be kind
NRA.
of comprehensive, I don't know. I mean, you could, what is it, the CID?
You could add in there
Yeah,
other,
just add in
other
the other.
incentives, whatever.
I would say just add in the other tools that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
That-
add
tool that-
TIF area improvements and other incentive tools.
other incentive tools.
That's
Yeah.
fine, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else to add about downtown, development and revitalization?
I can't think of anything right now.
The
Probably I'll think about it later.
only thing I had was, up there on Metropolitan, as far as I know, I'm not talking about Seneca to Metropolitan, but, I mean, do we,
4th to 7th, that's,
Is that-
I think a plan, may be brought forward that we'll be able to discuss here within a couple months. Yeah, I know there's a plan in works that, I don't know, if developers are in the position today to discuss it, but I think they'll be here to discuss it within the next month to 45 days.
I mean, we would like to see that area develop, wouldn't we? So I was just suggesting if that's what we feel, maybe we should have a general
think we should
goal
put that on
to reflect that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't,
it's not done. I mean, it's
yeah,
not- I wouldn't talk about it.
yeah, because we don't know where it is, but I think developer does have an idea for that area from 4th to 7th from Metropolitan over to Pawnee. But we're not there yet. We'll see what that developer has to say, because I think they will be, making time to come and visit us, talk about it. Okay, next item, tourism. Boost travel demand through statewide industry events and extend invitations to meet in Leavenworth for future meetings. Hi, Ms. Lee.
How are you?
Good. This is something I know that we have done, continue to do. And in my opinion, we keep it definitely as a goal. Do you have any other thoughts on it, Ms. Lee?
I continue, yes, when I'm attending these events and different meetings and such throughout the state. If they always, if we meet quarterly, bi-monthly, whatever, I always try and include Leavenworth as a meeting, host whenever I can. And that we're scheduled to host 2 of them this year, and I think we hosted at least 4 last year. So I will continue to do that.
And does our advertising, would it come under this subset here? Boost travel demand, just the things in your magazines and a couple billboards?
Yes.
That's all inclusive in there? So is it the feeling of the commission that we keep this one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Next item, concentrate on social, military, education, religious, and fraternal markets or tour groups. And
Tour groups is actually, the Smurf market is geared more towards meetings only for the most part. So tour groups and leisure would be additions to that possibly. And I'm already doing group tour and leisure and the meetings industry. So, and continue to do that and have kind of specified some different magazines, as far as trying to concentrate on that, the Smurf market in general, so.
Well, and I think in that we ought to also include the markets for athletic events and things like that as
sports
well,
is good.
because those are growing with the thing we had at Havens the other day and other events like that, and the more bike rides and things like that
Sports
too,
tourism
and the sports field too.
Yeah, sports tourism is pretty big anymore.
And a lot of the national events that Christy attends have actually been very successful lately. She's gone to the Going on Faith, faith-based travel place, and she meets with all these different tour operators and tour groups, schedules them to come out and look at what they can do here. She's went to the African American Travel Association.
Yeah, this industry is very broad. I mean, because there's a whole sports tourism consortium that you can go to those type conferences all year long. You can go to group tour conferences all year, meetings, and it's just very broad in that. So you have to kind of drill down and try and concentrate on some of the different markets that you think fit your community.
Maybe just promoting to those groups, even if you don't go to the meetings, just promoting
And I've
to those
actually
groups.
done that a couple times too, just put ads in their directories that they hand
Right.
out to the attendees to some of these different meetings and conventions.
okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I heard you define the Smurf groups as mostly going after meetings.
Correct.
And maybe we want to add tour groups in some of these categories. Tour groups is different than the Smurf market, as you say. Those
Smurf
are
market is more meetings.
meetings. And tour groups on social, military, education, religious, and fraternal, I mean, we do encourage them. Athletics and sports, and obviously tour groups would include the carousel downtown and a few other things like that.
What about the arts too? I mean.
The arts,
Yeah,
definitely.
the
I was just
arts,
thinking
yeah.
about the film festival.
Yeah,
and-
the arts,
Right.
yeah,
That's a
Arts
good
as
point,
well.
yeah.
yeah, film festival had a great start and will continue to grow. So, athletic, sports, tourism, tour groups, parentheses, arts, all the Smurf groups for tour groups too.
That's good.
I have, this may not be a goal, but it could be an activity or an action under one of the goals, because you briefed us a couple of weeks ago on the historical markers. And that's, I mean, I think that the plan is to implement that in 2018, correct?
Right,
So I'm not sure but maybe it's an action or activity that we'd like to, I mean, we're gonna get this done, but we'd like to just put it on there so
You
there's
could
some visibility.
add historical to that as
Yeah.
well, too.
Yeah,
Add a
Since
bullet
our-
point for
we're first
the,
city.
Right.
those they're not wayfinding signs, what are they called?
Wayside markers.
Wayside.
markers.
Wayside markers that are gonna be,
Yeah,
paired with your iPhone or your,
yeah, it was,
whatever.
So, and at this point, that actually does follow under the third bullet
Okay, yeah,
there
I
with
thought of that, right.
reinvesting
Yeah,
the funds
yeah.
into projects.
right.
Okay.
Right. That's good.
And I was just looking at, maybe it's kind of an action or activity that we're gonna kind of, it's gonna get done, but
Next item is identify projects and programs to reinvest transient guest tax funds. I think it's,
Done quite a bit of that. Welcome sign, the
how
transient.
much money are we looking at? Approximately $300,000 this year? Are we guessing in transient guest tax?
Probably closer to 330, 350.
Okay, call it 300, 350,
Our
okay.
transient guest tax, our tourism grant fund, which has been a really good program that Taylor and Christie, we give out $20,000 a year to area attractions,
I think that's great.
and that's done really well. Again, the welcome sign, website, part of that'll be a dedicated website, the wayside markers, use the transient guest tax, so we are reinvesting that in projects.
And just, I think most people know, I'd say 5, 6 years ago, we're getting $20,000 to $25,000 in transient guest tax for the entire year. We're getting more than that per month now. There's more teeth in it. We have the right to collect. In the past was on an honor system with some of the hotels, and we weren't, once again, getting 20, 25,000. And by law, it can only be used for tourism-type activities. I know if you got a big pothole out in front of your house and people say, why'd you build that sign up there? We cannot use that money to fix that pothole. That doesn't mean we won't fix the pothole, but there are limits on how we can spend this. And I know that we are reinvesting in different things. A couple things that I would like to see is more permanent trash cans, like on every corner, on 2 corners of every corner downtown or in the area. Just for, I know there's some downtown, but I think that would be a tourism type activity. Well, maybe I should ask. I know
Is
that
it?
the law states that the money has to be spent for, quote, tourism type activities, and it's very, very loose. I've always wanted to, let's push the envelope on the tourism. Does cleaning up the city help with tourism? In my opinion, yes. So we had trash cans in the historical area. If we have some blighted properties in the historical area and we want to encourage tourism, can we use that money? I don't know. And
Yeah, I think just something like to keep in mind too is, if it's, look at it because it's a reciprocating tax, the more people you have to stay in the hotels, the better.
Right.
So anything that gears towards marketing, bringing people to town, that's gonna increase, you'll end up getting more taxes. So just kind of keep that in mind that it's more heads in beds and
Right.
that will bring more tax in.
And we're going to have a 4th hotel on, we get $300-some thousand this year. Next year, I'm guessing it's going to be $450. I'm just guessing. And we need to explore ways that we can spend that money within the constraints of the law. And, because we do have a windfall, for lack of a better term, that we're experiencing. And I don't know, we're going to have probably a 20-fold increase in a period of 6 years. From what we got 6 years ago to what we have a year from now, it's going to be a 20-fold increase. And that is a windfall. I don't know how we spend it all, but I think we should spend it judiciously and figure out ways that we can use it for the improvement, the beautification of the city. Within, I even not completely facetiously, but one time said, can we have a tourism police officer and that wakes up the chief, and he was sleeping back there, but, that we just have a police officer that
police
just
tour
controls
guide, is that what
the
you're saying?
hotel. And I said that kind of facetiously, can we do that? But that's probably a little bit of a stretch on tourism dollars, but it's a lot of money, but our hands are tied how we spend it. I just want to make sure that we explore different ways on how to spend it.
Two other ways we've explored the holiday decorations downtown.
Right.
You may think that's a small amount, that's a large amount.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that Taylor is gonna bring, that Commissioner Bowder and I think Commissioner Wilson, Commissioner Griswold have been to a meeting or two, is the festival idea.
Yeah,
Yes.
We have
that's
no
good.
idea what that's
good.
gonna cost, what the recommendation is gonna be, what the commission's gonna select to do, what personnel costs would be, what sub costs would be, so, that's a big item
That's a
on the
big item,
horizon.
and those are good items, and,
So, yeah, I look for that to take a considerable amount.
yeah, I agree.
Yes,
I agree.
I think so too.
Okay. Any other items?
And did-
That was I was gonna make a statement.
In terms of the festivals?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Till we can put that in there.
Mark, I do have an alibi before we go to community improvement. I don't know
Go
if you're
ahead.
ready to. And I know that Taylor is working on some things, and I got a little more knowledgeable last week when I went to that Main Street National Conference about the Network Kansas.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I think that's the organization that these Grow Leavenworth County loans, working with them, that we can make those available to businesses within the city. And then we have, and this may have been mentioned, these $5,000 grants to improve the facade of businesses downtown. I don't know what the exact goal is, but I think we need to somehow reflect that, because I know that it's an important aspect of economic development within the city.
Yeah, I think we can cover that under,
okay.
Under the entrepreneurship item in the last,
Oh, okay.
in the last deal.
Okay.
Our partnership with Network Kansas has been great, with the e-community loans.
Exactly.
And we have worked with a lot of veterans that have done the
Okay.
Boots to Business boot camp through the Army, and,
Okay.
they seem to have been successful, but yeah, and last year we gave out $1 million in loans, and that's unheard of. Before that, we had done a couple loans a year,
That's
and so I think it was just getting the word out,
Good.
increasing that program, and then yeah, the small business grant program is helping a lot of small businesses, especially here downtown. For a single tenant place, you can get $5,000 if you spend 10 on basically non-maintenance related items like signage and moving of walls, floor, ceiling, and then if you have a multi-tenant space, you can do 15 on spending 30. So
Where's that small business grant money come from? Is that from
it
Network
comes
Kansas?
it comes
or-
directly from our economic development fund
Okay.
here at the city.
Okay.
Which is from the
And
countywide sales tax.
we budget
Okay.
roughly $80,000 a
Good.
year for that program.
Okay, good.
And there's many businesses downtown, I know, that use the facade improvement program over the last 5-7
Yeah.
years.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the business owners, existing business owners, are probably fairly familiar with that. You probably get calls and saying, help me with my sign.
All the time.
Yeah.
And most businesses, actually, they're all eligible every 2 years,
Yeah.
so.
So, it does, they're taking advantage of it. Okay, we clear on that, on the
Yeah.
tax, guest tax. Next item, community improvement, subsection A, establish city-funded source for demolition of blighted properties. I know that we did this last year, we put some money into it in last year's budget. Is it something we want to continue doing? That we-
Yes.
Yeah, because like you suggested last year, we can react to them a lot faster.
Yeah,
If we're gonna continue to do, I think you can remove it. We wouldn't take it out.
yeah,
Staff wouldn't, year to year, we don't take stuff out.
yeah.
So I don't know that,
Last year we established it, but we want to
yeah,
keep it
it's
in.
been
so-
established.
You
it-
say
there-
continue it,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, there'd be no need to have a goal to continue it.
Okay.
We would just continue it.
Okay.
I would like to explore if there's any excess transient guest tax that could be used. So,
Yeah.
so we're removing that. Adopt the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code. Did we not do that?
That's not been done yet. That's something that we're still looking at doing. The property maintenance codes that we're using are from about 1985, and it just hasn't been updated since then. So I've been talking with our building inspection staff. There's a whole kind of set of different international codes related to buildings and what have you, and this is sort of part of that library. I know they have some that they would possibly be looking at updating, and we would want to do it kind of all as a batch, updating everything. So that is something that we're still looking at doing, so to make sure that we're, current on the regulations that we're looking at.
Is this interior or exterior, or both?
Well, the 2015 property maintenance code, it's exterior, but some of it is related more to structural type issues, and so that would be a matter of working with our building inspection staff to see if we could, possibly have to split up some of the inspection duties, since code enforcement staff doesn't have the knowledge or the expertise to look at some of those issues, and kind of figure out how we would be able to address some things that are contained in that code.
I think you have something to say, Mr. McDonald.
Well, I know that community development's been working with the building inspection, and having a simplified property maintenance code helps a lot on some of these tough houses like the ones we looked at last night at the commission meeting. What is a bad house? You can look in the giant technical manual, or you can say it needs to be a structurally safe place to live with that code, and then you can move ahead.
But there's no way to do internal inspections inside.
I could be wrong. I know I had this discussion with Commissioner Griswold. A couple cities in Kansas, Lawrence most notably, but a couple of KCK, instituted rental housing inspections where people, they go in and you could inspect a house before they put it on the rental market or while it's on the rental market. And I believe that House Bill 2565 or something in 2016, a bill in the Kansas legislature, which I believe passed, outlawed that. You cannot go into occupied properties without a warrant or being invited by the owner of the property. So, one of the thoughts was, do we have a rental inspection program and a house is vacant, and if we would have one, do we go in and inspect it and say, yeah, this one meets code? If you're the owner of the property, if you come to my house, I want to look at your, city says I want to look at your house before you rent it, and I'll say, give me a warrant. I can say that. In other words, you can't, they don't have to come in unless I say, yeah, come on in.
So even if it's unoccupied?
Even if it's unoccupied, as I understand it, but I don't know if Mr. Waters is able to.
I think you're correct.
Yeah, so they can't do that. Now, the HUD money is different, because,
Right.
that HUD is federal money and the state can't supersede the HUD requirements. If you're gonna get, if someone applies for HUD money, if I want some HUD money to rent a house, and I say I'm gonna rent that house, HUD then has the right to go in and inspect it. Make sure it meets HUD standards. But for local municipalities to inspect inside of houses, as I understand, it cannot be done in the state of Kansas. I don't know if you've had a chance to look into that.
So do you want, before we move off adopt the International Property Maintenance Code, that is separate from any kind of rental registration.
Right.
So that is
Okay, sorry.
just the city adopting a new set of rules, an updated set of
Yeah.
rules that affects
Yes,
both
let's go with that.
Mike and Hal
Yeah.
in the building, and Julie and her code enforcement as far as that. So if you wanna wrap that up,
Yeah.
rental
Yeah.
registration or rental inspection,
We'll talk that separately.
enter
yeah.
into that discussion, we can start
Yeah.
that, but.
Is it your recommendation, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
is it your recommendation, Mr. McDonald and Ms. Hurley, that we do adopt the International Property Maintenance Code? Or is it also something that's so complex that all of a sudden you're handcuffed?
I would think that keeping it on here as a goal would be appropriate, so that we can, have the opportunity to work some more and see what's going to be the best way to move forward on that.
I completely agree. There's a common set of goals on something that's older. Helps a lot.
Does this have much of a budget impact?
No, it would be, we would have to work with the clerk's office, to update the ordinances and all of that, but in terms of
Okay.
budget, it's minimal.
Is there consensus to keep this?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Is it, could we possibly look into the, rental property inspection?
Yeah, when we
That's
finish
a
this one up,
separate-
we're gonna talk about that in a second, okay? So we're gonna keep, we have a consensus to keep this on.
Yes.
Yes.
And, let's finish up the code enforcement issues, then we'll talk about other things. Explore the possibility of code enforcement officers issuing citations. I know that, we had discussed that last year, and I know there's input from, police chief as well as Ms. Hurley's organization, that giving code enforcement officers somewhat, quote, police powers, is problematic. That it maybe was something that we didn't want to do, that they could give a citation on the spot. Their process now is they see a violation and come back and write it up. I think we put some things in place. You have computers with them in their vehicles that they don't have to come back, go out for 3 hours and come back and write up things for 5 hours. Well, they can do that quicker, but.
Yeah, and I talked to some other cities whose code enforcement officers do issue citations, and the long shot of it is basically their code enforcement officers have to be deputized by the police department, which, brings about a whole other set of issues and it's complications, and so, I'm not sure that it would be the most effective way for us to go about, enforcing. So that, that's up to the commission, obviously, but it is a little bit more complex than just, the officers having a notepad where they can leave a
Write
citation
ticket.
on a door.
Yeah,
I think it would open up a gigantic can of
yeah,
worms.
yeah. I think we have, the police chief have to deputize them. When you deputize them, you can't just
Yeah,
do it like in the
Right.
cowboy
You're talking
movies. I mean,
training.
there's a lot of training and,
Right.
back and, or getting the proper employees. Since we did explore that possibility, I know that you reported back to us. In my opinion, I think we
Take it out.
delete that,
Yeah.
that, possibility of deputizing or, allowing CEOs to issue citations. Continue with the plan we have now. Now's the time.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, this is actually, one of the goals that I had, wanted to bring up, rental property inspection. I think is very much needed. This will help remove blight from the community. Property renters will be given good quality homes, reduce elderly sickness. Some elders on a fixed income and have to settle for houses that are not up to code. And also hold their landlords accountable. And for those that are on, fixed incomes, they'll be able to be placed in a home that, that they don't have to settle for. It'll give them the service that'll help them to become a better citizen and want to take care of the property because, they're given that good quality home. And I think that a lot of landlords, they'll move a person in, there's mold inside of the walls, and, people are getting sick. Now people don't even care about the homes. They're tearing up the outside of the houses, and I just think it'll definitely help us within our community with the direction that we're moving. We're trying to remove blight from the community. Well, I think that this would definitely be a good way to start to implement the system and, help make our community look better.
And are your rental property inspection, is your thought the interior as well as the exterior?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
And
That
my
was what the
question.
issue.
Well, I look at this, even though it's nothing like stormwater. If there's a consensus that we want to look at this issue, today stop there and then let us do the work and
Okay.
bring to you what's legal, what are your
Okay.
options and all that kind of stuff. But that gets the ball rolling, just like it did last April with stormwater. And we started with a slideshow of pictures and we spent
That's good.
progressively go through it. So if we
I think so. Some of the things I've seen, I go into patient homes all the time and I've seen mold, I've seen rats, I've seen holes in
we've all
floors that were
seen it.
dangerous. And they're a danger to the community with all of that. So I don't, I know they can't right now do the health department inspections like they do with businesses. So I'd like to look at what our options are.
Yeah, so I think we have a consensus that you can report back to us what are options in the state of Kansas based on current legislation. And I know if we take it a step further, we did go through this once before and, and we'll have a packed chamber if we, as we discuss it again, and as well we should.
We will.
So, but the first step is, report back to us on what options are available to us. We're not taking any, but let's see what the options are on rental property inspections, interior and exterior.
Well, and I know, just to say publicly, that our, we have some really, really good local renters.
Yes,
Really good local rental agencies that do a good job and keep on top of that. But then there are some from out of town, and there are others that just don't, so.
But you can't blame it all
We can't blame it on,
on the landlords. You gotta blame some of it on the tenants.
of course, yeah, absolutely, but
And-
at
and-
any rate,
The landlord's not gonna dump $5,000 into a house to fix it up on the inside to have a tenant come in and tear it up.
Right,
in 30 days.
it's a complex situation. What we ended up doing on a very, like a better term, dumbed-down version of rental property inspection registration, it was about 8 years ago. We
yeah.
said every rental property needs to register with the city. At the clerk's office, I think there's a one-time $25 fee, and it basically gave us a POC, a point of contact for the owners of the houses. Other than that, there's no teeth in it or anything. Just in case there's a problem, we know to call somebody who lives on Fifth Avenue or call somebody who lives in Lakeland, Florida. Whoever is the registered owner of it. It was a quick place to figure out who owns it. We can also do that on the county website on the tax appraiser, because it's listed there. Whoever's registered as the owners is there. So I don't know how effective this rental property inspection has been.
But there could be some other ways that Paul will look at, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
could help us.
that's what we're gonna find out.
Help us
Yeah, that's what we're gonna
alleviate
find out.
this problem on the front end, more so than
Yeah,
dealing with it on the back end.
let's see what our options
Sure.
are, and
So-
City Manager Kramer and Ms. Hurley and everyone else
Okay.
involved, and possibly even the police chief may be weighing in on this one, discussing it. Okay, next item, community amenities update.
Mr.
Oh,
Mayor,
go ahead.
I do have something that I want to talk about with respect to the overall appearance of the city. And I think I know definitely there's room for improvement. And I'm not talking, I don't think I'm talking a lot of, the things that I get concerned about as I drive around town are, and I'll just, all the signs, street signs, directional signs, safety signs that are bent or cracked or whatever. I mean, it just doesn't look very good. And I'm not sure that would cost us a lot of money to get that taken care of. Just that in and of itself, I think would add to the appearance and increase the appearance or enhance the appearance of the city. And then, and we're having the spring cleanup, and that is a great program. But what happens kind of in between, when we have the annual spring cleanup? I know we have a program where we have certain organizations like the Lions and the Rotary and other organizations that cover down on various parks and other facilities that the city owns and that are used by our citizens. But I think we still have some parks and facilities that maybe need a sponsor. So that, to me, would be something we could, or have the Parks and Recreation department head take a look at in terms of maybe reinforcing or invigorating that program to help with, and then it's just, you had something? I mean,
Yes, I actually spoke with Mr. Steve Grant, Parks and Rec's director. I know that they may have a shortage on manpower, but I was also thinking about possibly if they would be willing to contract some of the residents at the homeless shelter
Well,
to help
well,
out.
maybe that's something we discussed, but that, Sister Vicky has talked with us, and I don't want to necessarily speak for you, Sister Vicky, but the homeless shelter serves a need for people where they are at that point in time.
Yes, correct.
They need a place to sleep that night, get out of the shelter. The homeless shelter is not there as a rehab or a job finding or anything else. That's probably not the purpose of the homeless shelter.
Welcome Central part, though.
I'm sorry?
Central
Welcome
is-
Central.
Possibly Welcome
That
Central.
entity.
Yeah, but that, I think that's a possibility that maybe Mr. Grant talks about. What I'd be somewhat concerned about is we as a government entity putting that on a charitable organization saying you can do that when we're also almost asking them to vet these people before you turn them over to Parks and Rec to clean up the parks. You know, somebody's gotta kinda check them out, we can't just say.
Manage them, yeah.
Or vet them, make sure that, you know, there's other issues, people,
Yeah.
and, you know, we can't just use everybody, just because they're in the homeless shelter at Welcome Central, so, okay, yeah, if you want any help from us, you gotta go work in the city for 8 hours. I mean, it sounds good, but I don't know that it's possible, but.
Yeah, and even if we don't do it for the homeless, possibly open it up to the citizens. I mean, the thing is, like I said, it's a need, they're lacking manpower. I mean, our community needs cleaned. And I just think it's something that we can do, and I think that'll be providing a service for the homeless as well as citizens inside of our community. And we'll be killing two birds with one stone. We'll actually be cleaning up the community, once again, removing blight.
And to Commissioner Griswold's point, you know, Saturday, with the community-wide cleanup, it actually, people are probably starting all this week, and we'll notice a difference.
Yeah.
Where is Ms. Bauer? I think she said there's 884 people, she's not here right now.
What I'm interested in, yeah.
884 people
And
involved.
you do notice a difference, and
Yeah.
so I'm just talking about sustaining
But how
that.
do we sustain, how do we build on that?
Yeah.
Obviously, anybody watching, anybody in this room, you can carry a trash bag with you every day and help clean up, and we'd appreciate
Yeah,
it.
but-
But can we grow that from the ground up? Can we partner with the school district and we get a bunch of bags printed up? I guess these aren't printed, these are the ones we're giving out, but maybe we get some printed out saying, make Leavenworth clean, and we give them to all the grade schools and just encourage the kids to do it. And the kids may, you know, I don't want them running out on 20th Street, and things like that, but I mean, just, somehow partnering with the, you know, if the kids will do it,
20th Street has.
I don't wanna say they'll shame their parents into doing it, but if, you know, little Poindexter in first grade says, Mommy, I'm going out to clean up, so well, let me go with you.
And you also did a good thing last year in terms of passing the $500 fine, right, for littering.
Yeah,
And I don't know how many citations, but,
One, he's got one.
yeah, but, I mean, I don't
least
know,
it's
I don't
there.
know, but, I mean,
You know, I agree.
we should issue those if we see people
Oh,
chucking things out of their cars. I think that was a very, very good move.
Yeah,
But,
Could
But
we
it's-
look into it?
sure.
We got a
Yeah,
consensus?
yeah, we can ask,
Let's look into it. Let's have him look
yeah.
into it.
yeah.
Something.
Mr. Grant, did we cut you off, or, yeah, I saw you coming up?
No, just some other areas that we've reached out, some of the organizations around that are maybe job placement. There's a program called Brand New Start that we're hooking them up with our Parks Department, where now they have to be managed, so they have to send somebody out like we were talking about. They'll send somebody out though that will manage them, and we'll provide them with trash bags and so we're.
Now, where's that from?
It's called Brand New Start. Linda Johnson is their representative. They currently bring individuals to the community center and help us do work there.
So she manages them or vets them a little bit before they come in?
Correct, supervises them,
Supervise them.
basically,
That's
yes.
what they need is, yeah, you have to have supervision.
And, but she vets them a little bit too, they're not people that are,
The prisoners.
you got 6 warrants outstanding or anything like
Right.
that, they're people,
Right.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then there's another one called A1 Career Builders. So what they do is they bring citizen people out that they learn basic job skills. We'll have them at the community center do things sometimes that, dusting and things like that, just teach them the basic work skills, following a schedule, getting to somewhere on time, items like that.
Yeah, I know that we have some people from the Grossman Center
Correct.
that, is that a work release or halfway house, what would you call that?
I'd call it a halfway house.
Yeah, at the Grossman Center,
Do they
the,
still do the work release at the county jail?
Yeah.
They do? Okay.
Sheriff's
chief
Department.
says, yeah,
Okay.
So we get some from the Grossman Center down there at the community center as well.
in terms of priorities, in terms of the litter, would be the main arteries, the 4th Street, the 20th Street, the 10th Street, the Metropolitan, the Spruce, and I guess our side of Eisenhower. But, I mean, that's where it's really evident to me, as we drive those, and that's where people who come into our town for the first time, that's what they see. And that's, I think, sustaining, trying to get that, it's tough, but I think that's what we're trying to do. To look at various options to ensure that we get it, we don't have that litter along the roads as much as we do. Because the city does look great after the spring cleanup. I'd like to see it stay that way.
Yeah.
So,
is there any interest in, trying to partner with the school district in giving
Sure.
giving, see if the school district is interested in receiving bags from us, I don't know, what,
I
something
mean,
to
there could
do.
be like service projects for
Yeah, do it.
I don't know
National
if you'd
Junior
wanna
Honor
give a
Society.
young
Yeah, that's the, you see, there's
Plastic
downside, it
bags,
sounds
yeah.
good, but it,
what they're doing with them now,
yeah. Yeah, it's something that we discussed with the school district to see if they would have,
Well, we could do something
Yeah,
like
we can
engage in
ask them.
partnerships,
Yeah.
for the purpose of beautification of the city,
Okay.
trash removal, stuff like that. And that engage in partnerships opens it up to trying to see what the Welcome Center has to offer, what the school has to offer,
Yeah.
what different
Okay.
organizations have to offer.
Let's look at it holistically,
okay.
comprehensively.
So I think we finished that one. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? There's special matters already left, and I think we all probably need to go. Can you walk over there without that?
yeah.
Don't trip on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. The next item, I believe, is community amenities. Is that where we are? That's where we
Yes.
left off. First item is update and improve amenities at less used city parks to spur growth. We're back.
The reason we
The
added
next
that is we
item,
had a couple years in a row there where we did sports field. We focused on some of the big parks, and then we decided to maybe put some attention, and you'll see that in the CIP, specifically with the ball fields that we're doing, is really where we've focused our budget attention in that item.
and we're still doing it. I'm driven by Eagles Field, for lack of,
Yeah.
is that what you're calling it? Eagles Field?
Sure.
21st and Choctaw, whatever.
Basically, it's called Eagles.
Yeah, Eagles Field. When will that be completed? I know, I saw the dirt moved in obviously the last couple of weeks.
Right, yeah, it looks like they have it cut to where they need to, and then they just got interrupted with hauling the dirt off. Once they get that removed and they're able to bring in the ball field fines, then it'll go really quick.
Yeah, so
It goes back in.
it'll be available at 1st of May, bar,
You would
catastrophic
expect.
rain events or something.
Is that an in-house, are your people doing that, or did we
No, that's a
contract for that? Okay.
Yeah, Brown Midwest contract.
Yeah.
And they did the ball field at Southside Park, which would have been in 2016. So that was another, what would fall under the less used,
Right.
park category.
And then what are the next two?
And then, Doherty Park and Jefferson Park, are the other two that we'll have slated. I believe currently, right now, we have them, both of them in the 2019 CIP currently.
Okay.
What were you gonna do at Jefferson?
It'll be basically just removing the infield, it's not really even infield material, it's just kind of grass, and then laser grading it out and putting in the ball field fines, that we've put in at all the other places. And it'll just be another practice site. It'll be mainly for small kids because of how small the area is.
Jefferson, 11th and Kickapoo, 11th.
Yeah.
Yes.
Somewhere.
Right.
Okay.
The skate park, have you guys thought about putting a water fountain in the bathroom out there and also repainting the surface?
The surface of the,
The skate, it's like, it's where they ride at, it's like, it's slick.
we have, and when we've discussed that with the manufacturer, they request that we do not repaint that. It's supposed to get to that point.
That bad?
Because as you repaint it, and then the minute they start hitting it again with their skateboards, it starts bringing that paint back off, and then you don't have the consistent ramp or stuff that you see out there. So as far as repainting that, that's something that the manufacturer does not recommend actually, because we did inquire on that.
Okay.
Isn't there a water fountain there?
There's a drinking fountain.
Yeah.
Which is, we currently have a leak in the water line, the supply line going to it, which we kept hoping would surface last summer and it never did, so we're gonna have to dig to find that. But I've talked with Brian Bailey, our park superintendent, and that's one of the items he has on his agenda, to get that drinking fountain up and working again.
It's not working now.
No, it's not.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you plan on?
Yes, yeah.
And the bathroom?
There's, we put a porta potty out there that'll services both the skate park as well as the practice field, what we call sports field number 5, the one that's right there at the corner of 20th and Ottawa.
But the other parks, the other minor parks, Jefferson, Southside, they have no bathroom or water facilities, do they?
We put porta potties out there during the
During
baseball
the summer,
season.
you just
Yeah,
do it
while they're,
May through August or something like
yeah,
that?
while people are practicing out there.
Okay.
So that there's a porta potty.
Is there any water at either of those?
There is not,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions? I think, do we have a consensus to leave this on as one of the
Yes.
goals
Yeah, I would.
for next year?
I will say, as far as less used parks, we have, since 2013, we've either replaced or upgraded all of our restroom facilities in all of the parks. Now we're going to start focusing on playground equipment, as that has aged over time and hasn't been addressed. One of the lesser used park, again, Southside Park, currently just has a slide and a track ride and a couple of just 5 or 6 single standing items. So as we get into the replacement of our playground equipment, my goal is to put a composite type structure at that park, like we have at the other parks, where you have a bunch of things connected together. So that would be one good place for that.
What do we have, 680-some acres of parks in the city?
424, I believe.
424, and how many parks are there?
22, roughly, depending on what you refer to as a park, 22 parks and
There's
green
some
spaces.
pocket parks in there.
Right, correct.
Mr. Mayor, since we have the Director of Parks and Recreation at the table, and I don't know, I looked in the other categories, and I don't know whether we're gonna cover this, but one of the things that, I don't have a feel for, with the specifics in terms of participation, but one of my goals would be for us, for the city to support and to increase the participation of the youth in the various sports and recreation programs. So, I mean, that's just a flat-out goal that I think we should have. We don't need to get into a lot of specifics here, but I don't know if later on we're gonna address that. This is under community amenities, but I did want to bring that up, because I think that's important to support the youth of the city, and I think we're doing that, but I'd just like to kind of track it, to see if we're doing everything we can to increase the participation of the youth.
Right, and that is our goal, is to maximize
Right. So, I just
participation.
think- right.
We send flyers home. Flyers go home in the backpacks of every student in the city of Leavenworth. We, with the school district also supports us. They'll send out a email blast to all of the families. We send out our own email blasts. Say baseball registrations come up, we'll send out an email blast to not only people that have participated in our baseball programs, but also our basketball and softball and everything else.
Do we think those are good programs. Do we think that's having an impact as far as the number of kids, youth that are participating, or is that something we're not tracking at this point?
Sometimes it's just based on feedback, and sometimes we hear from parents, well, I never got that, which isn't surprising. We put it on Facebook, Twitter. Melissa Bauer, our public information officer, puts it everywhere. It's on our website, it's on Channel 2.
It's in the paper.
It's in the paper. We do Q5. The editor of the Leavenworth Times is very supportive of our programs. We even we had a brainstorm on this with our Park Community Activities Advisory Board, and we said, hey, let's set up a table at Walmart. Sometimes you see that, and we set up a table at Walmart and hand out flyers. We'll put a table at Paraday for some of our events, and so of course, our activities guide that gets mailed out quarterly.
Well, my recommendation is that we include it somewhere as a general goal. I mean, because we think it's important, so.
Increase youth participation.
Yeah,
Sounds good
yeah.
to me.
And he's got all the specifics, we don't need to get it, Steve has already mentioned a lot of the activities and actions that he's taken, and I think they're all good. The only other thing I would say about youth sports is that I think the key thing, one of the key things, and you've told me this, and I agree, sometimes you have a challenge getting the coaches, right?
We do.
And so anything that we could think of to, because I think the quality of the coaches for these youth programs may be one of the most important things, because the parents see that they have really good coaches, they're gonna they're gonna encourage their kids to sign up for those sports. I've seen it with my own grandson in Hoboken, New Jersey, with soccer and basketball, and it really makes a difference in terms of the quality of the coaches. So I don't know if we can, do you hold any clinics for the coaches to kind of help them with, maybe some aspects of the sport?
We've had some in baseball, in youth baseball, some coaches clinics.
Just an idea, just an idea that we might want to take a look at.
And I know that you guys don't open up the gym until 4 p.m. Summertime is approaching soon. Is that still going to be the only time that you open it up for basketball?
The gym
at the Riverfront Community Center?
At the
Correct,
community
yes.
We have activities already scheduled in there on Tuesdays and Thursdays earlier in the afternoon. The only other days we'd be able to open is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then it becomes a staffing issue. We've got to the point where we make sure we have a gym supervisor in there, mainly to track people that are in there and for fighting and stuff like that. So it's something, if we're gonna do that, we'd have to look at the budget and staffing for that.
Okay.
Okay, the next item, and so we're leaving that on there, and it looks like we'll have an addition that will, when we finish number 3, I know there's gonna be one addition at least. Second item is streamline registration, reservation, and payment processes for Parks and Rec.
And that is underway, and hopefully that'll help increase some of our participation as well. I think it will. It's gonna greatly enhance the ease of registering and reserving for all of our programs and events. And The Tyler Parks and Recreation Program is what it's called, TPAR, T-P-A-R. And we've started the early implementation process of that. My department as well as the finance and IT department here at City Hall. We expect to roll it out sometime this summer where, so when it comes this fall, we'll be able to do online registrations for basketball. And
Can
as
you
well as-
bring a demonstration to us
I will.
sometime
I
at a
thought
meeting?
you
That way
already-
the general
you bet.
public can see that too.
You bet. I plan on, as soon as we get far enough into it where I can bring it to a study session and introduce it to the community, to you all. So,
Great.
absolutely.
I know.
Let me add to that one, that, that is a module in the Munis system. We spent a considerable amount of money over the last couple of years on this Munis system, which we built originally as a financial management, financial software tool, but it has modules for, so everything works together.
Good.
All the registrations, the payments, the online payments, everything works through our financial system. So it's really an enterprise system for the whole organization. And we've been rolling out modules consistently since we started with finance.
Great, that's interesting.
And I know at the swimming pool now, you can use a debit card or a credit card to pay. You don't have to carry the cash with you.
Yeah.
And that started last year or the year before? I
I
can't
think
remember.
it's been, yeah, a couple summers now.
It has been,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
So
so that's helped out a lot.
keep this as a goal. I don't know where it
Yeah.
went. Streamline registration, reservation payment.
Continue, yeah.
Next item, explore options for development at Havens Park. I know that we have. Do we continue to explore those?
Bathroom? Bathroom? Bathroom at Havens Park?
Yeah, I can, I was looking up something else.
Havens Park development options. What did we explore? We did look at a
Explored a
bathroom.
restroom,
And that was how much?
180,000.
And that included all the infrastructure going along with it, lighting, security lighting, drive, parking, curb, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Is that a prefab one, Steve, like we put out on the soccer field?
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's doubled in price then.
I'm sorry?
That's doubled in price.
Well, there's quite a bit included when you start talking about all of the parking and the drive up to it and all that. That added quite a bit to it. I would say that, you're correct though, the restroom itself is in probably, to get what we would like we've put at the soccer complex or Haymarket Square, those are the two, where you have, a two-holer on each side to put it
Right.
in layman's terms, you know, so you have men's and women's with two facilities in each, you know, heated. I think just the restroom itself is like 140, right around 135 to 140 for just that restroom, and the rest of it was the parking and the asphalt curb and all that.
And the lighting and, yeah,
Lighting.
remember we were talking about that.
Right, so.
So we also looked at, as part of it, we brought in the trails presentation at Havens Park. We were just trying to bring Havens Park-centric type items to the commission over the last year. So those were the main items that we brought forward.
Well, and the bicycle club is involved with them, and, I mean, looking, you know, when you're exploring options, you're also looking at exploring partners, I think, too, and maybe put that in there, supporting partners. Like
We do have
like
one
the
for Lions
like the
Club.
Lions Club has talked about the benches, and instead of putting trees in for memorials, putting in memorial benches, and the Boy Scouts, and who are already using it, anyway.
Do we keep this, are we still exploring options, or are we implementing options now?
I think we're still
I
exploring.
think we're still
Yeah.
exploring.
There's nothing implemented at this
That
point.
price we
I'm
have.
just
Yeah.
with that.
Passed on the restroom.
Pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Keep this as a,
I think so. I mean, in general, we like what's happening at Havens Park,
I love
right?
it, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe this probably is not one of those areas where we could use the tourism funds.
I don't know. I wanna be creative with it.
But we need to
For
keep it on,
events,
we
yes,
need to keep
for
it on,
events,
we need to keep it on the
definitely.
table.
We say that, again, sort of jokingly, but the bike trail out there is now on,
right, yeah.
the Kansas City Metro-wide sort of
Yeah.
mountain bike, I'm butchering the name of the
Yeah, I
concept,
know,
but
sure.
the network.
Yeah.
So if the city was to put in, you know, some signage and some markers and some other stuff, that's absolutely a tourism
Yeah.
attraction.
Yeah.
It's very, very unique park, and I think it, says a lot about our city, so I just.
How many acres is it?
94, I believe,
Yeah.
I guess. I think that's,
Yeah, and we had at that, the recent event, which was a walk, but it was sponsored by the
Yep.
Bicycle Club. We had more people from the Kansas City area and from Lawrence than we did from here in Leavenworth, I think.
Yeah, there's all kinds of positive feedback on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've had several people from out of town ask me about it, how to get to it, things like that.
So I think we keep it, right? We
Okay,
keep that.
yeah.
Keep
and,
it in there, keep
Consensus.
exploring, keep exploring.
And one thing we wanted to add, this one, this section, Mr. Graham, was improve child participation in youth sports, words to that effect.
Ideas, initiatives, but yes, I
Increase
would
youth,
support that.
increase youth participation.
Yeah,
Participation in
improve,
the-
yeah, youth participation.
Increase
in
youth
sport-
participation.
in Parks and Rec activities. Not just sports, but everything.
Right.
Okay, next item, public safety. First item is police, and,
Thank you.
Chief's gonna come up and sit with us. First item is address recent trends in domestic violence incidents. And I know that the chief gave us a very comprehensive year-end report, as he does annually, and it was all broken down there about addressing them. I don't know, I'll let you speak, chief, about addressing them. What do you say, yep, they've increased or decreased, or?
Last year, we had 827 domestic violence calls on average in a 24-hour cycle. That's a little more than 2 a day. It's getting worse, not better. We're taking steps backwards in our community. The shelter closing for the financial and management issues. They also sponsored what they call a PRA program, which is when a domestic violence incident takes place, an advocate comes to the scene after it's safe and helps the victim facilitate services and safety issues. And so we are really struggling. My only pitch to the commission would be that I know that occasionally you get asked for funds from a number of advocacy groups in the community, and we're always very reluctant to do that because we don't want to open up Pandora's box. But if you were ever going to think about that, this might be an occasion where we have to. We are struggling. It is directly correlated to public safety. And so I think a fair case could be made in that particular case to give that consideration. If the answer is no, it's fine. We'll continue to do what we try and do. Mr. Thompson and I and the other law enforcement leadership in the county have met periodically to try and come up with issues. There are some programs that we've tried to get implemented. Something called a lethality assessment, which is that we go out to a particular event, we make an arrest, and then we follow up on that at some point, and if there's still issues, we can detain the person again. So if there's not that sort of continuous cycle, we had talked about that with the judge. I think he's announced his retirement, so new stuff is sort of on the hold until that matter is addressed. But this is what I worry about every day. If you look across the country, they seem to be getting more and more prevalent, more and more dangerous, more and more violent, and we're struggling with that. And so that's the trend. And so in terms of your role, if you might think about that in the future, that's probably something that I might ask for, given that you might get other people asking. I don't know that it's as related to public safety as this particular issue is.
Pat, do
is
you want to say
critical.
which organization you're talking about?
Alliance Against Family Violence, right?
Right, the shelter.
What is the status of the alliance? I know that they're closed down, but do you hear any
They're
rumblings?
recruiting
Are they
board
coming
members
back?
right now.
They're
I
coming
met
back
with,
alive?
they have, I think her title was ambassador, and so they've assigned, there's 3 or 4 people that are going around in the community. They're trying to raise money from private organizations to get the shelter back up and running. I think the issue is that they need an infusion right now to get it back up and running, and then they continued the grant process. It was, as I understand it, a function of some of the management of the grant process that was not done
You
very
have a
well.
director, or, you
Yeah.
have to have a director to get the
Something
grant,
like
or-
that, so,
Well, yeah, you have to follow your bylaws and have your
Right.
501c3, and that was the problem. Did they have a 501c3 now?
I'm not
Did they
sure
lose that?
exactly what the status is. I know
Because they
that
can't do
everybody's
grants
paying
unless they do
attention and
that.
trying to facilitate ways to help them, and I gave her a lot of information so she could take that to the group.
This person you're talking about, are they now the director, or?
No, this was, I think there's a small group of people that are sort of privately together trying to go around and
The
get
task
money.
force is starting to.
Seen quite a bit of advertisement from the board. They're seeking new board members for the Alliance, trying to get new board membership to participate. I think everybody recognizes it's a problem. It's a solution usually having to do with money, unfortunately.
So, did the alliance completely dissolve? I know they had a board. Are they completely gone now? It's gonna grow from the.
There still is a board that is in existence. Okay, they're having some trouble getting new board members. There is efforts to do that. The Alliance, which is what we would commonly refer to as the shelter, closed, right?
Right.
And then all programs associated with that, one of which was the police response program, disbanded as well. So, that's the trends of domestic violence, and so I would adamantly argue to leave this on here, that we continue to work very hard to solve that problem.
Okay.
Would it be of, we had, when we had about a month ago, we had some people come in, the experts in terms of the youth, following up on the youth question that we had. And I found that very informative, and not that we could take maybe any direct steps, but do you think that we would benefit just from learning a little bit more about this situation if we had one of the people that are part of this small group that are still trying to do some things? That's not a goal, it's just something that we might be able to look at in the next few months to see, if there's any help, even if it's just our support, or not financial support, but just the support of the commission, that this is something important to the city and the community. So I don't know.
We could certainly.
My understanding was, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the Alliance was working prior to the last, I'm going to say manager,
Right.
the director of it, not fulfilling her paperwork duties.
Right.
And they stopped the grant.
Right.
And they would not redo the grant because it was bills owed, and et cetera, and et cetera. So I don't think there was anything wrong with the organization other than the administration of it.
Right, I think that's what created the initial problem, was the management process made the grant funding go away. And then the director problem existed. Now there's no sufficient funds to get it started back up again, so that then they can redo the grant process again. But that's been the problem.
I don't know, commingling of funds isn't the right term, but they buy some property,
There was some debt, there was a lot of debt.
There's some debt that, for.
There was some very clear management issues that was part of it, in terms of that, but,
We had no control over that.
right,
That's the reality.
sure.
Do you, what's kind of going on behind the scenes, the group is getting together, do you think that it has legs, traction, that this thing's gonna go, or? You're giving as much help as possible, and.
We'll see. That's all I can do. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes. So I would argue, obviously, to keep that one on
Would
as
you
a
continue to
priority.
report to us on
Yes, sir.
movements that you see on that through the city manager?
Certainly.
I think
Was there a consensus for maybe a study session
Yeah.
similar to
Yes.
the juvenile one, where we just bring some
I
people in
I
and
think
talk?
so too, yeah.
I mean, that's what I was suggesting, just so we become knowledgeable, and if at some point, at least they have that we know that we'd like to find a solution to this. I'm not saying that, it's just trying to take advantage of maybe connections and some partnerships, and maybe some people will step up to help it, because.
Awareness, community awareness.
Yeah, that's.
The second,
So we do, the second one is engage in targeted initiatives to reduce drug crimes in high-risk areas. I know we have instituted drug task force, and.
very excited about that. The new team has been making significant strides in that area. They've made 2 fairly significant drug seizures in the last 60 days. We've also had some other smaller stuff. We're working very collaboratively with the Sheriff's Department. They have some drug staff members as well. And so just last night, they partnered on, our agency and their agency partnered on another arrest. And so we have done exactly what we plan to do, which is to target that stuff, and that is working very well. And we continue to do that, and those things tend to have a sort of momentum when you start making those kinds of arrests, and those things, the secondary issues, we'll keep an eye on. But we will continue that, obviously, and work very hard to keep making those efforts.
And that was one of our goals, engage in targeted initiatives, and the way we supported that was give you the money to fund that drug task force. Do we want to keep this as a
Yeah.
goal? Does that mean that
Keep
we
it as
add,
is.
we're gonna add to it, or, is it our goal to do as we're doing, or are we looking at even
I think it's
possibly
finding
improving
ways.
it, or not improving it, but you need more help?
Let's see how this goes. Let's see how this goes. It's going very well. It's in the initial stages. I think probably, maybe towards the end of the summer, I'll have a better sense of how effective it's being in terms of the drug arrest. We'll know. It's the secondary stuff associated with the drug activity, you know, the theft and that sort of thing that I would want to see some reduction in. My recommendation would be to keep it as a goal and can monitor it.
But not necessarily add more funds to it, because we're looking at this also as potentially a budget item. Keep the budget as it is, or are you looking, do we need more officers?
No, I think I want to see how this goes.
Okay.
I want to see how this goes.
Okay. So we keep engaged targeted initiatives as is. Next one, continue to focus on community engagement.
Spend a lot of time trying to engage with our community in terms of officers at various functions and events, and we continue to do that. You know, we started our planning early for our annual summer camp, which is in late June. We will not be going to Schlitterbahn. We've been doing that every year here for the last 4 years. It's not the big ride. I never let the kids ride that anyway. It's the other issues that are starting to come out about the safety record and all that. So we'll figure out some other option, but we're starting to plan that, and every opportunity that we have to engage with the community in either a formal event or semi-formal stuff, we continue to do that. So I would keep that.
You know, one of the things that we hear a lot as the homeless situation, whether it be homeless, vagrants, whatever it might be, I don't kind of lump it together. And I know that your department does respond to calls where people are potentially breaking the law, and you do encourage people to make those calls to
Right.
you know, it's not bothering. People say, I don't want to do it, I don't want to bother them. That's, you want to speak on that at all?
Certainly. So going back a few years, we try and pay very close attention to the issues of the day. And so anytime that we start to hear things like that, I pay attention to that because I want to hear data. I want to collect data and monitor that sort of thing. And so one of the things that we have been doing over the course of the last 3 years is we've been hearing a lot about homeless, how many homeless people are there and that sort of thing. So in the last 3 years, our department has had a contact with 36 people that have self-identified as homeless, right? And so some of those might be repeat offenders, but we are collecting that data because I don't like to rely solely on, you know, this person said that or this person said that. I would argue, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, there are probably 10 or so people in our community that we are very familiar with, that we respond to a lot, because they are the ones that are, they attract the most attention, particularly in the downtown business. Folks see them all the time. The issue is secondary to that. I've argued this before about mental health. There's a lot of mental health associated with those folks, substance abuse issues. Those secondary services that used to be available are not available for us anymore to rely on to remove that problem, because that's what it is. There are people that have issues that might be homeless that are working very hard to solve that problem, and so that's where Sister Vicky and her group have come in and been very helpful. It's the ones that are, we know who they are worrisome and trouble, they have mental health issues, or they have substance abuse issues. Our role is to go remove them from that crisis. Where we are failing collectively as a society is the follow-up to that, where we used to be able to take them to the state hospital and get them back on track and all that. Those funds and services are just not available, and that's the problem that we have. We arrest them, we put them in jail, they get out, they're back again. That's the problem that we have.
What do you arrest them for?
Well, I mean,
Just for being homeless is not a crime.
Right, they have to behave in a way that would be a violation. We've been at the community center for a time or two when someone's yelling and screaming and shout. So we'll go and arrest them. They go to, they bond out, they come back, that sort of thing. And everybody knows there are, like I said, 7 or 10 people in our community that are really the ones that we spend a lot of time with. It's, I would argue that it's not some huge problem. It's that focus of group, that we just cannot solve the long-term problems and get them back on track the way we used to.
When you talk to other police chiefs in cities of our size, in our area, and I know you go to the National Police Chiefs Convention, things like that, is this a problem unique to Leavenworth?
Absolutely not. Went to a specific conference on homelessness at the Police Chiefs Conference in Philadelphia. The room was full. You know, imagine a big conference room with a big room. The room was full. The police chief was from on the panhandle of Florida. I heard the
Tallahassee.
yeah, something like that.
Destin.
Significantly different and much more complicated. People in the thousands are homeless down there, and it's all sort of scalable. Here, we have a problem, but it's all scalable to our size of community, whereas most of the top 5 states in the United States that have homeless people are Arizona, Florida, California, where it's warm, obviously. Colorado is experiencing some issues associated with marijuana, probably, that kind of thing. But I would not dismiss it as a problem, but, you know, it's all scalable compared to other communities, not nearly as troublesome.
There have been some prominent people in the community, even an elected official says that Platte County, for example, drives them across the bridge, halfway across the bridge, drop them off. Other ones say that we know Wyandotte County brought them off and dropped them off at the homeless shelter. Right. Do you have any information to say that that is true?
No, I don't have any information that's true. I'm not naive to believe that's never happened. I'm not going to say that it's never happened, but that is not something that I believe to be a valid assessment of how it happens.
When you talk with your counterparts in law enforcement in Platte County and Wyandotte County, do any of them kind of tell you on the side, hey, by the way, I'm dropping this guy off in Leavenworth? As has been reported?
They wouldn't be very savvy if they told me that. No, I have not had that.
And do we ever drop people off in Wyandotte County?
I'm not allowed to tell you that. Sir. No, we have not done that. That's just not an accurate thing. That's a sort of myth that grows. And it's frustrating because, you know, sort of
disprove the myth.
Right.
Yeah.
We continue to work on it. You know, to your original point, sir, I would just say, listen, if there's a problem, call us and we'll come down and we'll sort it out. We're really good at that. I talk a lot to business owners. They'll call me and say, hey, chief, you know, I get to work at early, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a person sitting there. Can you help us? Sure. We go down there and kind of help it out, sort it out. The primary issue for us, though, is this, and it's important to be clear. It is not illegal to be homeless. And so we oftentimes spend some time educating people about that. They're scary looking or they're unnerving sometimes, and so people get, you know, they call us, which is fine. We're glad to do that. But in terms of our ability to take action, it's all behavior based. They have to be behaving improperly for us to take action, which we're certainly capable of doing, and we try very hard to do that.
I do have, and I have a lot of empathy for the homeless people. I think this community is doing a great job in terms of trying to support them and with the new shelter and other aspects. But I have heard that, for instance, that they get passes from Sister Vicky's shelter to go take showers at the Riverfront Community Center. And is that something that we support as a commission? I mean, they're not taxpayers. That's our community center, and I don't know. I just throw it out there.
I thought that was going to stop when the new shelter.
It hasn't stopped. I got a report within the last couple of weeks about that.
Steve can talk to that. They are building a shower inside the shelter, and I believe the plan is to stop that. But again, they are buying the passes. Yeah. The passes.
Okay, well, I didn't get that part of it, but so there is a plan where they eventually will be able to take showers in the shelter.
But could I go down to the community center and take a shower?
If you paid your entry fee.
If you pay your
Yeah.
And so they are paying their entry fee. They may not be paying, but their entry fee is being paid.
Correct.
Yeah, so I mean, there's.
I just don't want this city to be defined by the homeless, okay? I understand, and I'm empathetic too.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the paying portion of it, but hopefully we'll be at a situation here soon where they don't have to do that.
Yeah,
it's my
that's the plan, yeah.
Okay,
It's my
I didn't
understanding
realize
their
that.
shower facilities just aren't completed yet at the new shelter.
Because there have been some incidents down there, right,
Yeah.
over the years?
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Like the chief said, it's not illegal to be homeless, and we have people who aren't homeless that
Have
don't clean
caused
up.
just.
Well, I'm talking about incidents in terms of kind of breaking the law, and I'm not gonna get into specifics, but there have been some of those incidents in the last year or two that I've been aware of. so.
Yes.
Do you feel that population, how we define it, has a greater incident of breaking the law than the other people? And I know you don't.
Yeah, let me answer that.
Classify, at community centers specifically.
I'll answer that one. I don't think so. I think that when we have trouble, it's the ones that have some mental health issues. Those are the ones that really take up a lot of our attention and.
Whether they be homeless or not.
Correct. And those two things are mostly correlated with each other. The homelessness is sort of a symptom of the mental illness issue. That's sort of how it manifests itself. And so in terms of whether one might or might not break the law more than other, the answer to that question is probably no, but there is, with a homeless person, a higher propensity to have mental health or substance abuse issues that would manifest itself in a problem with us.
I just have a question. When we met with some of the businesses downtown, and there was some discussion about that they might feel safer if we had a patrol person down there again for parking patrol, like before. What do you think about that? Is that something that might be helpful?
It depends on how that's sort of structured, so
Not just for the homeless, but I mean.
Correct. The parking enforcement officer is not a police officer. That's a
Right.
civilian person. And so just the sheer sort of presence of that person, if that makes everybody feel better, that's fine, but it's clear to make that distinction, that person would not be a police officer. Now, she had radio communications, and if there was an
Right,
issue, she would
liaison,
call and we'd
right.
come right down, and so that does work. Yes, I think that might be helpful if people just feel better because that's down there, that's fine with me. That's fine with me. That district, though, has a patrol officer. We can't spend all of our time right downtown, but, that's the smallest district that we have in terms of patrolling, so, there's an officer
With more
assigned
new
there.
people living downtown and that, it might be something to look at again,
Yeah,
do you think?
I'd be supportive of looking at it and talking about it a little bit more, or, because I have
going
had
into
some
budget
merchants
period.
mention that person who used to do that was kind of acted as like glue for that, just in terms of getting the word out and keeping everybody informed. Now, that has to be balanced against the amount of money that this person is being paid, but I'm just telling you that I heard a lot of support for that type of person, so.
I did
And I'll
too. I did
just,
too.
we got rid of that, or the decision
know.
to get rid of that
Right.
was simply because it was not paying for itself, it was
Right.
not supporting itself.
Right.
it
And what we
raised-
have to do to implement that again is, we removed parking time limits in the city. There are, we didn't remove all the signs, but there is no enforcement of 3-hour parking or 2-hour parking or whatever it might be. The only enforcement there is if someone's parking in a
I
disabled
don't think
spot.
parking is the problem. What we're talking about is
I know,
the
but,
homeless are.
what they're talking about
As
was
far as
when
the
she,
position.
was the parking enforcement officer, you see somebody in a blue uniform, and I don't know if
Yeah,
she wore a
I
badge, people thought,
Right, yeah.
and so that kind of gave people a good feeling. So if we reinstated that, either you want a police officer, a sworn officer, or the parking attendant, if you will, and we have to re-implement our parking enforcement program.
Right, I just want, in terms of that, which it makes everybody feel better, like I said, it depends on how we do it. If we want to put the parking person back downtown, and that makes everybody feel better, that's fine. That's different, though, that person was not an officer.
Right.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure that was
Yeah,
a clear distinction.
But people
And I don't
can
think
say
it
that made
needs to
it,
be. I think that worked very well. I don't
Right.
think it needs to be.
yeah.
I think if we're gonna put somebody downtown, they need to be effective,
I mean, have police powers.
have police powers
Yeah.
if we're gonna do that.
Well, I mean,
But I
she
think
always
that
had
needs to
access
be-
to police
that-
right away, though. I
Yeah.
mean, she always did.
And
She would get somebody
And-
down there like that.
And I know we do hear from some business owners saying, we need a police officer here all the time, and then there's also a group of business owners that say, hey, wait a minute, we don't, I think there's disagreement within the business community on the size and breadth of the issue. What are you hearing?
There's a difference of opinion a little
Yeah.
bit. How big it is subject to debate, I would bet, but there's a few folks. And there was debate about the parking. You know, you would ask one person about the parking issue, and we need the 3 hour, then there'd be other
Yeah.
people say, well, the problem is that an employee of the business is causing the parking problem and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So there's a lot of wide-ranging opinions about parking downtown,
And with
that we've all talked about.
and with the housing downtown,
Right.
it's just getting more complicated. You can't do anything about that.
On
But
a,
I think, could we look at that again?
sure.
I would be supportive of that,
commission?
yes.
Let me, during the day, on the patrol officer that has the downtown district, how many times in an 8 hour shift or per hour do you think they cruise Delaware from 6 to the community center? Yes, I don't know.
Depending how busy we are, if it's really busy in the afternoon, still busier in the day shift, I'd bet 2 or 3 times at least. In a
Per
day.
shift or hour?
I will not commit that they're doing it once an hour because they're too busy, but I would say 2 or 3 times a day at least, at least. That's all depending, if it's quiet and there's nothing going on a Sunday morning, you know,
Yeah,
more than
of
that.
course not, yeah.
But on a
Friday
other
night.
day, it might be really, really, you know, they're busy on something that takes forever or something like that, so.
Is there a high or low crime rate in the downtown area?
Let me make sure I understand that question. So,
Is there crimes being committed in the downtown area?
yes, there are
Is there a
crimes
high
against.
number of crimes that's being committed within the past 6 months? What would you guesstimate the amount of crime?
No, I don't like the word high. I don't like I don't like that word.
Just crimes.
Right, crime.
If you had to break the city into 8, not 4 break the 4 quadrants into 2 quadrants, so that you have 8 quadrants, even though
How about we
8 and quadrant don't go together. Would, in this downtown was one of those sections, are there higher crime areas than downtown, and are there lower crime areas than downtown? How's that?
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna answer that without the data.
Okay, good.
Because that would cause an uproar.
Yeah.
But here's what I can answer, and so the next part of it is mapping, right? The crime analysis and mapping, okay?
Right.
So we've been, one of our goals from last year was to do more of that and do that. So we've been doing that. So let's use the month of March as an example. What you are looking at, the first page. I asked the staff, I said, okay, give me how many burglaries we've had in our community in the month of March. And so that is reflective of the entire city, whatever that number is, you know, 15 or 20, something like that. Then, if you look at the second page, I can take that and I can compare, this is a time map, time analysis results. I can look at March of 2017 versus March of 2018. So I can get data now in whatever way that we want. I'll take it and use it to do police work. If you're curious and need to know from your perspective, if you want information, the whole point of the data analysis, criminal mapping and all that was to answer these kinds of very questions, so that we're not guessing and I'm not answering it off the cuff and then somebody says, well, that's not true, chief, there was 5 instead of 4, right? I can do that clearly and definitively. And so what you're seeing is just a very brief sample. We collect a tremendous amount of data. What we're going to do and moving forward and started to do recently is take this information and figure out a way to communicate it to 2 different groups. One is the general public. I want the public to know if they're curious about what's going on in a particular community, and the officers. So I know that, hey, we're having a particular problem in this location. Target your patrol responding patterns to that area so that we can protect, deter. So hypothetically answering your question, if it is, hey, do we have a lot of homeless people committing crime downtown in the central business district, I can now have the ability to get that information out and answer that clearly to you. The question of whether it's low or high is subject to debate, but I can compare it to another district or anything like that. So that was the point of doing that last year, putting the goal. Now we have that technology, we have the staffing to do that. Now what we're doing is developing our skill set moving forward so that we can get it out, answer questions like this without having to sort of make it up.
And you could include the commission on a periodic basis in terms of giving us updates, right, with this? I mean, because you talked about the citizens and the officers, and that's good, but I think I don't need anything on a monthly basis, but maybe on a quarterly basis. You can't go over everything, I understand, but maybe we could get a little more awareness of some of the things that you just talked about as a result of this great situational awareness that you have now.
So ultimately, my goal and my plan sort of strategically going forward is to do this into a smartphone app so that Joe, the citizen who has a smartphone, wants to know some particular question. We can tie that into the data that we have available, and they can look and answer whatever questions they want. It's probably 18 or 24 months out, but that's the ultimate plan in sort of these baby steps. And so I think I answered your question, right?
Yeah.
And did my best to answer your question.
Yes.
Answer yours, Commissioner Wilson?
So I sort of forgot where we were. I think we're on number 4, which is crime analysis and mapping. I have that now, and that's available to the extent that I might recommend that we enhance that or something as a goal, but we're doing that now.
This first page, the pins are burglaries,
Correct.
and the second page is,
A time map of last year in March compared to this year in March, right? Which is just a sample of many kinds of questions that I can ask and look for.
what do the numbers mean? Like it says 9.
How many?
Oh, okay, how many crimes,
Right.
and these aren't burglaries, these are crimes in total?
Nope, those are burglaries.
Just burglaries,
Right,
okay.
and so they're also assigned to the particular patrol district. The city's broken up into districts, big ones, small ones, all that stuff, so I can know where and how and what and all that.
So according to this, I guess,
So they aren't all in the same,
there's,
at the same location,
I
they're in
don't,
the same
what
general
we,
area.
or what we would normally define as the downtown district, there have been no burglaries.
Which one are you looking at?
2016 versus 2017, and that Shawnee to Spruce, and it's really from Shawnee to Choctaw River to 7th probably, I don't see any marks. So there's been no burglaries downtown. That doesn't mean there haven't been crimes, but there at least have been no burglaries, is that correct?
This year,
At least
yeah,
for March.
last year, yeah, but, yeah, last year, yes, this year, doesn't look like there was any.
Yeah, okay. And then the third page, I've got 4.
Third page is a little bit of a closer look at a particular district. So you see David Brewer and Woolman. There have been 4 burglaries in that part of the community in March, right? That sort of thing. And then, we have the ability on each individual pin to sort of bring it up and find out more specifics about what particular happened. That is a sample of what we have available to us now in terms of the data. It is simply trying to balance how much we have versus giving too much and boring everybody to death so they don't look at it, that kind of thing. That's where we're sort of at now.
Okay.
So
Well, I think information is good because there are some, I don't want to say myths.
Right.
But there's things that have a life of their own from, Wyandotte County drops them off here and Platte County drops them off here. Right. Things like that. And we're at that homeless symposium last week, 2 weeks ago at the library. And one of the myths that had been perpetuated in Leavenworth for years, I've heard, I'm sure we've all heard it, but the police chief and the sheriff both dispelled it. And one of the pastors, that there's a camp following for prisoners. That we've got a big problem with families of prisoners that come to town and they come here, they have nothing, and that causes a problem. Police chief, the sheriff, member of the ministerial line and said, we all hear that, but it's never manifested itself. We don't have that issue. But it sounds good. And if you tell everybody you're from a prison town, everybody says, I bet you got prisoners' families. Oh yeah, we got them here and they cause a lot of problems. But they really have not. So more information can, I don't want to say dispel myths, but at least let's talk facts and not supposition.
I think that might be from when we were kids, and that was more common, where it was maximum security, where fewer the wives worked, the mothers worked, and they followed.
Yeah.
So you guys started
The
that.
prisoners, but I don't think that happens.
My generation.
This is more of a medium security.
You're 2 generations back, 2 generations.
35 to 40 years ago.
You're saying we're old.
Oh, sir!
That's what you're saying. Except for the guy to my left.
I know it was.
They were all around me in North Leavenworth when I grew up there, so.
So we
Okay.
took that goal number 4, and we have a dedicated position for crime analysis and mapping. That is not an officer who does that on the side. That's somebody who's trained and focused. It's specialized software.
Great.
And learning, so it's something.
As a sworn officer?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we keep that one.
Yeah,
Next item, make state funding mental health facilities a top legislative priority.
definitely.
Leave it.
We definitely leave it,
Please.
and,
Yeah.
yes. we'll
Yes,
leave it.
please.
Next, research and evaluate unmanned drones for use by the police department. Well, you do have one, do you not?
Yes, sir. About 2 weeks ago, we acquired our drone system. We had been spending an awful lot of time on learning what the difference between a person that might buy a drone for $100 at Walmart or something like that, and the police department, which would use it for police operations.
You spend
which
about
they're-
120, don't you?
So we're good on that. In addition to that, we spend a lot of time researching, the cost is not so much the drone, it's the camera, whether you get night vision or FLIR or that kind of stuff can really make it expensive. And so we acquired those. We actually did a test mission yesterday. Got a complaint from a downtown business owner about a parking problem, so we launched the drone from the Justice Center to go look. And the vehicle had moved and was gone on our arrival. So now that is not a common thing that we'll be doing, but we did need to figure out some way to
Did it have
test
lights
it.
and sirens going?
No, it was, you wouldn't even have known it was up there, so.
How high was it? I mean, how low did it?
The maximum height you can fly a drone is 400 feet, and this was at about 200 feet.
Okay.
You have to have it within line of sight. You have to be able to, there's very strict regulations
Yep.
and that sort of thing, so.
So you could operate it from the Justice Center to downtown? You have
As long as we can see it.
Yeah, I mean, do you have to have a line of sight in that seat, or do you actually have to have eyeballs on the
We have to
target?
have eyeballs on the drone.
Okay.
And so essentially what happens is the operator's looking at a little 9-inch screen and the.
Oh,
watching
so
it.
he's not looking out the window and saying, where is it, or anything like that? Okay. That's good.
Right, so we're good with that. We can take that off and.
How many pilots do you have?
We're going to have 2 drone pilots and a supervisor to kind of oversee them.
If you have a situation at 3 o'clock in the morning that's gonna require the drone, I can see that happening sometime in the future. If the guy's not on shift,
Two guys.
you'll have to call somebody in
Yeah.
on something like that, okay? So we don't need to research and evaluate that anymore, we've got it.
Remove that.
Getting ready to launch it.
Next one, consider staffing changes within existing or slightly increased funding for the enhancement or detectives and drug cases and cyber crimes, which I think that we have
Done that.
accomplished, and we did put that $245,000 in the budget last year, and we were able to set up those positions. So that one can be accomplished or deleted. Next item is enhance our technical capabilities in criminal and traffic investigations and prosecutions with laser mapping technology.
We have acquired that, and the full week-long training class starts Monday, and so we have it, we've tested it a little bit, but we're good to go, we're ready on that.
And if you think the Tyler Parks and Rec is gonna be an interesting presentation, wait till you see, I've seen the preliminary presentation of this. It's amazing what this thing can do. You set it on a tripod and it can essentially map this room and do a 3D model, and it's incredible.
That's cool.
Do you
Like to
use
see
it,
that.
will you just use it on fatality accidents, or almost all are injury accidents, or?
We can use it on anything, but our target is the big criminal cases, big
Okay.
traffic accidents, fatality traffic accidents. We had we've used it one time, with the person that had some issues out in Heveland Drive. That big case, we used it on that, sort of a testing model. Going forward, the drone that we acquired, we delayed it a little bit because certain drones are compatible with this piece of laser technology, and so that you can do an overflight with the drone, you can do the laser mapping, and then you can get virtual reality goggles, and you can sort of walk around in the crime scene, which is straight out of like Iron Man, the movie, which I'm very excited about, if we need to do that at some point. We did not get that yet, but the technology is something else now. So we're really excited about that. We've been meeting with our county attorney to brief them on that. We'll be ready to go.
So would you say this goal is accomplished?
Yes.
the commission saw fit to allocate the funds for
Yeah.
all these, all the tools in this, so we've acquired this. I don't know that there's any plans in the next coming year to purchase anything, new technology-wise. I think we have quite a bit of work mastering what we've just acquired.
Exactly.
What are there any other goals that we would like to put on, public safety and the police enforcement coming up next?
I'm not sure it's a goal, I have a question, because in the past, I think personal turbulence of your officers has been a challenge, correct? Is it still a challenge, or we fixed that issue, or, I mean, just
Let me start.
Personal turbulence or turnover?
turnover?
Okay.
Yeah, personal, yeah,
Turbulence, I was thinking like.
yeah, no, turnover,
Infighting.
turnover,
Okay.
personal turnover,
So
yeah.
let me start big and talk about the profession. Anywhere that you look across the
Right.
United States, there is problem attracting law enforcement officers. Practically every law enforcement agency in the region is struggling to do that. We are no different, but
Right.
it's all sort of scalable. So, whereas the Dallas Police Department has 400 or 500 openings, the
Right.
police department here has 6 or 7 openings,
Okay.
something like that. We have not solved the problem, but it is not specific to
Right.
us. And so, my answer to that question, excited about the compensation study that was approved, or it's getting ready
Okay.
to be done. We'll see how that works in terms of both the police department and the entire city. That'll be valuable tool and valuable information to kind of see where we stack in terms of that. The Overland Park Police Department is offering like $15,000 signing bonuses to come from one agency to the next. I've never seen this in time that I've been in the police department, where the Lenexa Police Department, which is one of the Johnson County, are struggling to attract people. That's how bad it is for the profession. And so,
I think I heard on the radio, was doing an interview with the Johnson County Sheriff.
Right.
He was 150 officers short.
Right.
Not, and I don't know how many, what his billeting is, how many
Yeah.
he
It's-
has staffing, but he was 150 short. He's talking specifically
Right.
about what you're talking about. The law enforcement industry is tough to find suitable people that want to go into that business.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a money issue.
right, yeah, and it's, so
But we have done things in the last 4 or 5 years, and we put in steps, grades within positions. There are certain officers that enjoy being a patrolman, they like, spend their career doing so. But we had a situation where a patrolman with 15 years' experience actually made $118 less than a new hire because of the way it went. So we put in steps, 1, 2, 3, or whatever it might be, of patrolmen, detectives, et cetera. So that did help somewhat.
stabilize it a little bit. But yeah, the entire profession of law
okay.
enforcement is suffering. We're no different than that.
Yeah, I just think it's something that, you're concerned about, and we should be concerned about. I know we're concerned about it, so I don't know, maybe there's a goal there, maybe there's an action or activity, but, I just bring it up because it is a universal problem to all police departments, and I just think that, if we have, it's something I'm interested in, because it does affect the effectiveness of your force, right? So,
Right.
How diverse is your force, Chief?
So.
You have 54 sworn officer positions.
We have 4 African-American police officers, we have 4 Hispanic, we have 15 female police officers. So in the course of, I would say, the last 4 or 5 years, we've made some pretty good progress, and hopefully we continue to move towards that. The Hispanic officer, we're getting ready to hire another one that's of Hispanic, so we'll go up in that category.
How many of them are Spanish speaking?
They all are.
They all
4 or
are,
5 of
right.
them are, yeah.
Okay,
They're
that's
pretty
good.
fluent in Spanish.
Okay.
I don't know, is there any, consensus, or do we not want to put those as goals? Because I think it's a good question on diversity, and you're doing some good things there. I just think that something that we want to keep in the front of our minds, you're doing the things that are necessary in those 2 areas. But as one commissioner, I'd just like to hear periodically how we're doing on those 2 areas. So that's my 2 cents, so.
Yeah. Is there a consensus to, just hear a personnel update?
Yeah, that's,
Personnel update?
in terms of
If he's
particularly
doing it,
folks.
I don't know why you need to do it 2 times. You're doing it now.
Right.
I think he's probably suggesting one quarterly, or how.
Yeah, what are we doing now and then, and during the budget, is that when we're doing it? As far as you kind of talking about those two areas?
Doing what? What are we talking about?
Just letting the commission know how you're doing as far as your personal turnover
Oh, okay,
rate.
okay.
Just kind of
Right, that is
And whether we
typically-
can help you, I mean, as a
Okay, well,
commission, that's
yeah,
what.
so now, it would be now during the goal setting, and then during the budget.
Budget time.
Right, that sort of thing.
Well,
Makes
I
sense.
would ask the city manager to report to us, you know, if there are issues, critical, how many openings do you have right now? You have 54 slots for sworn officers, am I correct?
61.
61, you have 54.
Right.
Okay,
So-
so you have 7 openings,
7
and that number has varied between 12 and 4, probably. Have you ever had all 61, every slot 100% filled?
No.
And at what point is, and I don't wanna say 7 is okay, but when is it critical? If you have 7 openings, you know, that's 15%, 14, 13%. You know, when you hit an 18% opening, is that critical? And when do you start to make everybody work so much overtime they wanna quit?
Right. It would be critical if I couldn't keep the staffing levels that we currently have and continue to do the investigative work that the detectives do. So if I start to worry about that, that's when it's getting critical. The rest of the stuff that we do, traffic enforcement, that kind of stuff, is valuable and it's important, but it's offense versus defense. I guess that might be the better way to describe it. So that's my, I have it in my head of when I get worried that we're below that. We haven't done that yet since 5 or 6 years ago. I think we were at 17 or something like that.
Yeah.
That was really when it was
Yeah,
trouble.
critical.
That was really when it was trouble.
Well, I know the chief has a weekly staff meeting with the city manager, and, you know, my thought is we have the city manager report to us any abnormalities or, you know, situations that, you know, exist. If you bring it up to the city manager and he reports to us, and we have to figure, that's an FYI for us, or is it something that demands our attention and action?
That's fine.
So, we have a consensus on that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
One last thing, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Did you have on the schedule this year for a truth talk?
We hadn't, we were targeting sort of maybe when it warms up in the spring.
Okay.
We have been, spending an awful lot of time on active shooter training for obvious reasons. We've been, getting a few requests, schools, churches, businesses, and that sort of thing. We really needed to focus on that for a while.
Right.
And we will continue to do that, but that's taken up a lot of our time, and so we had sort of put that on the back burner a little bit until maybe it warmed up the spring, that sort of thing. So we'll talk about that going forward.
Any other questions or comments for the chief or for any goals there? If not, thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Now, fire, next item is, I'm sure Chief Burchell is probably coming up. First item on there is explore the replacement of fire station number 3. Fire station number 3 is the one at Second Avenue and Limit. It's the oldest station in the system. I think it's 50 years old.
Well, it was late 60s.
Yeah, so it's 50 years old now. And I know that we had discussed, I don't know that we discussed it much last year. I think we did a little bit last year on what it would take to do it. And I don't know where we are on it right now, Mr. Kramer. I mean, we have done the exploration, I believe.
Yeah, I think the chief's done a little bit of work, and at some point, he could present to the commission sort of an idea of, you could do it on site, how you would phase it, but it's really about funding. It's really about, you know, how serious do you wanna get? Do you wanna actually sort of explore funding options at this point? We could do that, but we haven't gone a whole lot more than that. I don't know, Gary, you can talk about what you've done. I know you've talked to some designers.
Yeah, occasionally get, engineers calling stuff just to see, they're out searching for business. And one engineer that, actually they built an animal shelter here, that they built a lot of fire stations around. They came over and we went for a drive and looked around. And I just discussed with him, could we build something and still leave that station where it sits until we get it completed, then knock it down? Because when they realigned the road, we picked up quite a bit of ground and stuff. And he actually sketched out a little thing, that would be doable. So that's about all that's done. That was no cost or anything like that. They just wanted to come over and visit and stuff. And so that's what we did there. So there's been no cost or nothing there as far as, to them. It's just basically kind of waiting on money. And just talking to other cities and departments and different stations and stuff, probably I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here, about $3 million project probably. Civil work and stuff, the plans and stuff, architecture probably be 100,000 or so, that's what I've been told. Usually they say it's about 10% of the project, but.
That'd be 300,000.
Yeah.
Are you still using number 3?
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
How come you
That's a
couldn't
res-
take the plans off of 2 and just build it over on number 3 site and save $100,000?
That's a possibility.
I mean, that's stupid to reproduce it and pay somebody to get something almost identical to what we already have.
I agree.
We haven't gone very far into
We
it,
hadn't-
so
Yeah, I
maybe we would
know.
explore that.
We haven't even,
Let's start thinking off the top at the beginning.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were still using
Yeah,
number
the
3,
building
sorry.
structure, they could
didn't
do that,
realize
but
that.
you're gonna, still need some architectural for the sewage and,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
Yeah.
but it could be a
We-
cookie
yeah.
cutter, you know.
Sure,
just
we-
put
and-
that thing here once you get the plumbing in.
yeah,
or
and that
plumbing
station's,
electrical.
you know, it's almost, I might say it's, Station 1 and Station 2 are close, other than one that's got the admin side and the training room and stuff. So that's cuts down the footage there. That station's somewhat spread out. It just, you know, it could be we would have to maybe knock that station, current station down and relocate temporarily, which we could pull that off too. Just, once we know we're gonna start moving a little bit forward, then we, start looking at all those different avenues.
To Commissioner Dedekey's point, is there enough ground directly to the south of Station 3 right now that you could just pick up Station 2 and put it there, obviously, you know, not that, and while that's being built, and then when it's doing either open up a pathway and that's just become sleeping quarters and a kitchen, or, I don't know.
We could go over and kind of stake it
Well,
out
I mean,
ourselves, and that, but I think probably that there's a good chance that the station would have to come down first. We can certainly look at the plan. I can step it off and measure it, kind of just do a thing ourselves and look and see. Some of the issues that we're getting into though now, we're sending, for example, plumbing. We send a plumber over there quite often now because the kitchen sink stopped, that won't drain. They run the snake in. Well, the last time that they went over there, it took them a while. And when they came back out with the snake, it had mud and stuff on it. And he says probably what's happened, it's so old that the bottom part of the drain pipe is kind of rotted out and stuff. The problem with that is, it's on the wall to the bathrooms, the showers, the toilets, the urinals. So the plumbing's all underground. So we're talking, if we continue having this problem, that's a good possibility we're gonna be looking at jackhammering up the bathroom, so we could get into some unknown costs and some high cost. And that's one of the dilemmas, but it's, it's just maintenance beyond the normal maintenance when you get something of that age and start having problems like that.
So, do we need, are we done with the exploration of the replacement of fire station number 3, or is that still ongoing?
No, we really haven't explored it, at any kind of detailed level, to look at that kind of stuff.
Is there an appetite from the commission to do that, or?
We need to look
Well,
at
we
it.
can't afford it right now anyways, allow them to do it in their own time. And when they get it, they'll present it to us and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we could do a little more this year and maybe share it at CIP time. And then
Yeah,
you
it's
could
October.
put it in the queue, CIP is a 5-year plan, you could,
Yeah.
and it's not binding, so you can put it in the queue for 2020, 2021, when something like an animal control falls off or something else falls
Right.
off.
Okay,
How old is that
Sounds
fire
good.
station, chief? When was it?
50
50 years
years old.
50 years
About
old.
60.
Okay.
In the 60s. So we're saying continue that exploration, and obviously, like to Commissioner Dedekey's point, any creative ways of.
I can
we just
assure
take
you
the
that
good-
I'm very
yeah.
frugal,
Yeah.
and I always look at.
But you want a very
every area.
functional station, of course. Next item, evaluate the benefits of returning the fire department staffing levels in place before expiration of the VA fire services contract for the new commissioners. We respond to all fire calls at the VA. The VA used to pay us as much as 400 and some thousand
I
a
think
year.
the final year is supposed to be like 350.
But before that, it was 400,000 and 500,000, and then they dropped it down to 350.
No, sir,
No,
it went up.
It went up, okay, it went up, and they required us, correct me if I'm wrong, to have 4 firefighters on a call, on a truck,
At Station 3.
at Station 3 to respond to every call, and then they notified us on very short notice saying, yep, we're not gonna give you a nickel, and you're responsible for our fire support. We fought it, and I know the chief went back to, yeah, we're gonna do it, but we're not gonna have 4 on a truck, even though it's in violation of federal law, or not federal, I don't know, law is the right term.
Recommendations.
Recommendations, that when they're paying us, we would respond with 4, doing it with 3, and they went from 360, whatever it was, to 0 immediately. It wasn't a phase in, it said, it's gonna stop. We took it up, with a federal legislative program, DC, and they said, oh, isn't that interesting, and that's all we got.
Yeah.
So we do provide fire support, or fire support
Yes,
for VA Medical Center. So and that's the history on it. So it is a burden to the city, but we have to
Well,
deal with it.
even go back a little bit further, the VA used to have their own fire department, just
Right.
like the fort does. And what happened was they decided to disband that, and then they said, city, you'll do it, and we'll pay you to sort of staff it at a higher level. And, you know, going back to everybody now, they knew it at some point they would just cut that funding, which they did. And so now we provide full fire support to the VA, which obviously is a tax exempt property, so there's no payment in lieu of taxes, there's no funding, so we said we'll provide you the same level of service that we do everybody else in the community, and so that's where, and we ended up, just through attrition, we don't send 4 up there anymore, so we had 4 on the truck station to fire station 3, because that was the closest.
Fire Station 3 is the one that responds to the VA.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
So really, this has all been done then? I mean, are we done with that?
Yeah.
Well, the only thing there was benefit to us in having those extra people. It's just a budget issue of, do you go back to that on the own city's dime? And Gary can explain that, benefits of that.
Mainly, right now, we have on 2 shifts, there's 3 shifts, we have 16 people that's assigned. Our minimum staffing is 13. Below that, we call overtime. We only allow 2 people to schedule vacation. I give this 1 spot. We have people that, are off on FMLA, sick leave, military leave, the unexpected, and we can't schedule that. We don't know when that's gonna happen. So we go into overtime quite a bit, and it seems like we have a lot more people than when I was coming up to take off sick. I never wanted to take off, but it just seems that things have changed, in our culture and times. So overtime goes up quite a bit. We spent about $160,000 last year in overtime.
Over total personnel salary budget of how much?
66,000.
No, your total, you paid $160,000 in overtime last year. What's your total salary for the fire department approximately? How many?
It's over $3 million.
Okay, so 160,000 is 5% or something.
It doesn't seem like it's that bad.
Yeah, I mean that, goes with the territory. You can pay firefighters overtime because you have to have staffing. You can't say, well, let's not staff it from 8 to 12 on Saturdays or something like that.
And the other thing I'm gonna say, we have 3 stations but 4 companies. Station 2 has 2 units down there.
Okay.
And on EMS calls, and we've got their district on medical calls divided up on 10th Street. Rescue 2 takes everything to the west, and Engine 2 comes this way. They're running with 2 people minimum on Engine 2. If we added one shift has, when we're fully staffed, we're down 3 right now. When we're fully staffed, we have 17 on 1 shift. The request is just the 2 that would put 17 on each shift to help offset some of that overtime, but also the days that we don't need the staffing we have out there, it would give us more days that we had in a Rescue 2 with 3 people versus 2 people.
Okay.
So it would help with our staffing levels, but I wouldn't necessarily count it towards minimum staffing just to help offset the overtime. That was my plan.
How many slots do you have for firefighters? Not admin, but firefighters?
Right now, we have 13 slots open.
No, total for the whole department.
We have 49.
49, and you have how many on staff? How many openings do you have?
3.
46, so you're in pretty good shape. Do you have this experience some of the same difficulties law enforcement has? Seems to me, and I'm gonna make a comment here that I know nothing about, but it seems to me that firefighters tend to fill up easier than law enforcement. People want to be a firefighter more than they want to be a cop these days.
Let me just say, other places I've worked, when we advertised for openings, we would get sometimes, and then I'm not talking Kansas City, you're talking thousands here, but even
Yeah.
other small, comparable sized cities, we may get 100 applicants,
Really?
and we down through it. It's been it's real low here. We went out for 2 weeks, or, around December, I believe it was, and we had, I think, 3 applicants for 3. And so I asked HR, they reposted it and just kind of, we went to just kind of open until filled. And we ended up with 9 applicants, of which I think 7 or 8 actually met the minimum qualifications that we're in the process of interviewing them today.
Okay.
So we struggle. Because the Johnson County and other departments have really been going through a lot of hiring, we've lost quite a few people. We've lost 5 people in the last year. In fact, last June, we lost 3 real quick, all to the same department. So it just, they were here over 3 years, one almost 4, and then, but they went to Overland Park and started in Shawnee and started at $4,000 after being here for 4 years. So that's
$4,000 more than what they do.
Yeah, they opened a brand new fire station, so they weren't just filling empty slots, they were hiring
poaching
in
wherever they
mass.
could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do have the city doing a compensation study, right? That
We do.
might.
Yeah.
Are you gonna come to the commission with that later this year, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many roughly, rescue or support for EMS calls do you make a month?
a month, off the top of my head here.
Yeah, just a guess.
Well, we have around 3,000 calls a year. 70% of those are being medical calls. So 70% of our calls are medical.
Too bad that EMS doesn't share their fees with you, because an ambulance call, the minimum is $500. And, they've got 2 people on there, and we've got more equipment invested in that trip than what the ambulance does, and they get it for free.
Right, but they also have a lot higher training. They have ALS providers, advanced life support providers, paramedics.
And they're not that much higher than what your fire department is.
What's that? The training?
Yeah, the salaries.
Oh, salaries? No, they pay less. No.
Yeah.
But as far as training, it's a lot more to ours. And we would even struggle harder getting people too if we needed paramedics.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's too bad that we can't bill EMS for our fire truck making that run, that they're billing their consumer for $500 for the minimum.
When
If you go to Kansas City, it's $2,000.
Yeah. When EMS responds to Lansing, does Lansing Fire respond with them?
Yes.
EMS goes to Tongi, does Tongi Fire respond?
Yes.
So throughout the county?
It's part of the system that they use here, first responder system. But you don't go on every call. They have ProQ dispatching, so their dispatchers start asking questions. And if it hits certain criteria that they determine it's an emergency, short of breath, choking, cardiac arrest, profuse bleeding, then they tone out us and we respond also.
Okay,
because
so you don't respond to every call?
No.
Okay.
There will be, sometimes there's non-emergency calls we respond to. Sometimes they may get there and have a real large patient, someone weighs 400, 500 pounds. We get responded out to help them load that patient.
Maybe, is that something we talk about when we meet with the Board of County Commissioners?
We can. You won't get anywhere.
Well,
We can talk about it.
We can be heard. We can be heard. Any other goals, or we've already done evaluate the benefits, and
It's really just a funding issue. I would say it's not a bad idea. There's probably, from my priority list, a couple more positions in the city that I would fill first. But it's, it could be added to the list.
so you're saying,
I don't know that we need to evaluate it anymore.
okay,
But it's,
remove it?
It seems like you already evaluated
Yeah,
it.
all right. Any things we need to add to fire for goals? Any thoughts, commissioners?
Any thoughts, chief?
I would just say this compensation study, I think, is pretty important from the standpoint of reducing turnover, both in the fire department and the police department. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents. I'm not saying we need a goal up there, but, I mean, you just lost some firefighters to a, department in the Kansas City area, right? So,
Yeah, and I get concerned if we start losing firefighters for even pay or 3% more. You're always gonna lose firefighters and police officers to Johnson County.
Yeah.
It's just part of doing
Yeah.
business. We just hope to minimize it, right?
Right,
And
right. Okay.
you know, improve the quality of their experience here in
Sure.
the
Yes.
fire department. And that's really kind of also where Fire Station 3 comes into play. Is it a place where people wanna go to work? Is it you know, you spend a lot of time in the firehouse. Is it a place that, you know, that makes the community proud? So there's more than just the functionality of the building.
Yeah. You know, I'm speaking from no experience at all in law enforcement or fire, but it seems that firefighters tend to be a very strong fraternity among themselves, more so than some of the other professions in civil service that, yeah, firehouse, those are my brothers, and, you know, it's harder to leave. Hey, this guy's offering me $100 more a month, and I said, I'm not leaving my firehouse for that, you know, for 5,000 young firefighters, got a family, he's got, I don't say he has to leave, but he has to do it, he has to do what's right.
But that's like you said, they live in the firehouse, so you need to have decent
Yeah,
living
oh, I
conditions
agree,
for them,
yeah.
All the
Okay.
leaking and stuff's not a good
Thank you,
idea.
sir.
Thank you,
Mayor, may I
Chief.
make a
Thank you.
suggestion that
Yeah.
we expedite our next 2 pages?
Let's do so. Does
We
anybody want
won't
a break
get
real
done.
quick?
I would like a real quick break.
Okay.
just so I can go.
Oh.
First item, A1, create a long-term collector arterial street plan for Thornton Limit, Vilas 10th Avenue and County Road 5 or Tongi Road.
So the manifestation of that was what we did earlier this year when we prioritized Thornton. How far you want to get into creating a long-term plan versus how much funding is available to do these enormous projects. We can continue past Thornton onto maybe a plan. The reality is, I don't see in the next 10 years, if you do Thornton and then have Muncie in the works, how you can do any of these without just a large tax increase. So having collector and arterial street plan, we can do it, but I think the decision we made is Thornton and.
Yeah, Thornton's the one we're going, yeah, we're planning to go forward
And on the
with.
17th, we'll bring to you the funding discussion on Thornton.
Okay.
So we can, it's up to the commission what you want to do.
Do we want to keep this on or not, or we kind of have a plan that if we ask you about it, you can dust off something and say, here's the information, do you?
Well, we evaluated a number of collector and arterial streets with the knowledge that Thornton was the commission's priority.
Right.
So once that was sort of funded, we're gonna have to stretch to fund that. So any other collector or arterial street plan, the discussion first would be, do we want to talk about a new dedicated revenue source to fund a collector and arterial street plan? Which I don't know that there's an appetite for, so, but we'd be happy to do it.
Well, I think you need to have a
Funding
plan,
source.
whether funding, the plan and the funding, or, I mean, they're complementary, but I mean, we need to have a plan, don't we?
Well, we have a road plan.
Right.
We do have a plan.
Okay, well, good, so we don't, and that's not gonna be updated, I'm just saying, it's an objective or a goal that I would think would continue to exist. It could be updated every year, I don't know, I think a plan is a plan, and the revenues to support that plan are.
All right, so then I would amend it, I get what you're saying, so I would then amend it to create a long-term street maintenance plan. And not just focus on collector or arterial.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Okay. Next item, explore options for streetscape improvement, 4th Street, 7th Street, and Cherokee.
That was, I believe the commission added that, again, it's a funding sources, we have some opportunity maybe with some tip dollars, but other than that, we haven't done much on that. If that's another priority of the commission to bring about, again, some funding options or some streetscape projects similar to Delaware, we can go down that road. We didn't do much with it last year. It never really bubbled up.
One improvement that's happening on 4th Street from Seneca north to
The Arborvitae
Metropolitan, Westar is replacing all those lights, so that is a
that's
street,
good.
not on our dime, but
Yeah, that's
at least it's happening.
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
One road that I think we need to just pay attention to, and I'm not saying we put it down as a goal today, but it's when you come across the Centennial Bridge from Missouri and you get on the Kansas side, which I guess is Metropolitan Avenue,
Right.
just, that road is in really poor condition.
It's a
In
state
addition-
highway.
And the curbs and everything, that's Kansas.
They just rebuilt that.
It's just, okay, I didn't, I don't
he's
know.
talking about east of the intersection to the
Yeah.
footing of the bridge, because
Right.
they didn't go too far past the intersection.
No, they didn't.
They
Oh,
didn't do
okay.
that.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking,
Area
right, you
between
get
the
off the bridge, it's
Immediate.
that 200 yards or something? 250.
No, I'm also talking about when you're, maybe it's, I don't know, it's just as you come into the city, I mean,
Before
those
the stoplight.
curbs are all,
Yeah, all the way to the stoplight.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and so I just, we put a nice sign there, and that's really a good enhancement for the community. So I'm just saying, maybe that's something, and something we want to look into in terms of reinforcing the welcoming aspect to our city, that I would like to propose that at least we talk about it and maybe decide to do something in the future about it, so.
Is that something that we can, can we do some maintenance on that?
Yes.
It's very expensive,
Yeah.
because you are in a full detour, or one lane at a time traffic control mode. It's a state highway, and the state has no interest in doing anything, they say everything is fine. And I think
I figured if it was easy, it would have already been done. But, I'm just saying, it's pretty, it's pretty rough, I think, so.
They can put a sign up that says, so these groups brought to you by lack of funding at KDOT.
Yeah, we can do that.
Is there,
like that
a
idea.
consensus to put that, area of Metropolitan from the bridge, west to, 4th Street to the stoplight on,
I'd like, I support it.
KDOT, isn't it?
I just can't see
Huh?
spending any time
well,
on this.
what'd you say?
Isn't that KDOT?
That's KDOT, but I think this gives us some leverage to lean on them perhaps. a
Yeah,
little
maybe
harder.
they'll come down and do it, cause I can't see spending our funds on it.
Well, I'm
Maybe
not
that's
saying
part of
spend,
the goal,
right.
I'm not saying spending our, I'm just saying it's something that I think is important to the community and the commission, and I'm not suggesting we spend money on them. If it's a KDOT responsibility, I don't know, I'm just
Can we put
saying
it
that
in
it's
one of the
important.
goals that-
Yeah,
you know,
Advocate
let's-
to the state.
Yeah, call your buddies at KDOT and call in all your favors. Not all of them, because we need them for a lot more than that, but that'll be one of the goals, that investigate improving, from the bridge west to 4th Street.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yep, I got something too. Is there any way possible we can have a session and target the potholes in the community, especially the neighborhoods?
So we have a pothole program. There's a number to call and we go out and repair all the potholes.
How long does it usually take if the person reports it?
Well, there's a prioritization, there's only so many people at the street department, and they are pretty much full-time on potholes right now. And I told them, unless it's something that's gonna need a car, focus on collector and arterial streets, and then we'll go back to the residential areas.
Okay.
If it's, say it's something that's, right in the wrong spot on a couple of residential streets, they should do something with that. The other thing that we're doing is a little bit of triage. We can patch them quickly with cold mix. And if it's done right, it holds up fairly well. But the goal is to fix them once with the hot mix and not have to come back and redo them. You will eventually come back to a cold mix repair and have to deal with it. So they are doing both of those. If there are people that have reported problems and they're not getting answers, they should call and ask for one of the supervisors down there as to what their schedule is. And if that's not satisfactory, call our office.
All right, thank you.
In every February and March,
It
throughout
always-
the Midwest,
always
you're gonna have
happens.
potholes because of freeze thaw.
Awful.
And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah, for the
and then
freezing.
toward the summer, then they get them more
Yeah.
fixed.
And Nancy, what about that machine that you,
I know, like that.
Did you, that one on?
I shouldn't have said anything. It was
Have
my-
you seen
that was,
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like in
I said, I
Japan or
want one
something.
of those.
Cuts out the hole in the.
Yeah,
I bet that costs a little bit.
I don't even know if that's real, if that's just.
Well, I did
Yeah,
I did
I'm just
wonder
wondering.
about
Yeah, I
that,
did
but-
too, but
Yeah.
that was pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah.
It looked like a cookie cutter, went down in the ground, cut out the pothole and took it out and then
Okay.
filled it in.
Yeah, like 30 seconds for a
Yeah.
3x3
Yeah,
section, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, next item, infrastructure support projects improvements that lead to annexation.
So that, we added lead to annexation and we believe we've done that with our expansion southwest. Development sort of leading out there, drawing infrastructure out there, makes it much easier. We did that, the water department, I like to thank them again for looping, at no cost to the city, looping the water line and to the new business park and then extending it to the new subdivision, which means that now extending it farther west is cheaper. So we are, the road, Eisenhower Road Improvement, once that ever gets started, those are efforts that we've taken to push development and push infrastructure west that will make annexation easier.
And by annexation, do you mean take property from the county, bring it into the city, or are you just talking about development?
Well, annexation is unincorporated to incorporated.
And so you're talking that, not just
And I
western
wouldn't use
development?
the term take, you know.
No.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're using annexation in true sense of the word, that
Yes,
we annex
absolutely.
from the county to the city.
Increasing the size of the corporate limits of city roads.
And aren't we limited by state law? You cannot annex more than 40 acres?
Well,
at a
there's
time?
different rules for voluntary annexation.
Yeah,
there's,
or
you know, all that
involuntary
kind of stuff, and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, there are rules. Taylor's looked into it quite a bit, he's done some of that work at his, previous stop, so we are exploring those as we move
Yeah.
west.
Great.
Okay.
So we'll continue with that then.
Any other, we want to continue this as a goal and
Yes.
taking consensus, yeah?
I would.
Next item, explore alternative funding sources for stormwater projects.
I think I've seen this one before.
I think we're past that point. I think we're, are at the point of determining, how to implement, at what rate we implement. I don't think we need to explore this anymore. It's on the commission's plate to do, and I think we'll probably be doing it over the next month or so. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, we'll bring the funding discussion, the further funding discussion that we talked about last night, we'll bring that back on the 17th as well. And then right now, we have May 5th as the commission's first review of our draft ordinance. So I'd probably leave it on there, because you're not to the finish line yet.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if we explore alternative funding sources, but maybe,
Implement.
yeah, and I'll come up with the wording, but something that takes us to the next phase.
Okay. Anything else for roadways and infrastructure?
Anything on bridges, or I mean, I think the city has done quite a bit on bridges in the last, 10 to 15 years. I just throw it out, I don't know if there's anything on bridges, but.
Yep. Go ahead.
There's, KDOT has been very, very good to the city in the bridge replacement department. Those good old days are kind of over about 10 years ago, when there's no longer dedicated bridge funding. It was kind of rolled in with roadway funding that we would compete for. But when it comes to bridges that need replacing, there's only a couple that really fall into that, that we're not ready to submit them into the, we have to compete in the Mid-America Regional Council process basically for that. And that's a lot tougher. There are occasional programs the state has that we can compete for that, but none of our bridges are falling down dangerous at this point. We do have them inspected by an outside party every 2 years, and a report submitted to the state and to us, and there's a list of maintenance items that we're working to, you probably see that at either the budget or CIP on some maintenance effort that we need to do to basically protect the abutments and things from erosion or that sort of thing. But the bridges are in good shape. If you were to build some of them today, you would have built a different type of bridge. It might be wider, might have pedestrian facilities. But as far as are they safe, they're all safe.
Thank you. Outreach and transparency, public information, explore opportunities for a new city website with increased usability, transparency, and mobile capability.
I can speak to this one. So over the last year, Melissa and I
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Thanks.
Thank you.
started with meeting with various leading website companies for municipalities, going through demos. We've gathered RFPs and RFQs from other cities on their recent website redesigns. So right now, I've been working on an RFQ for our website. I should actually have that completed in the next week or two. Melissa and I have talked with various department heads and kind of gotten the feedback, but this will be funded partially by the CVB and the city, since they also they have their own standalone websites. So we'll bring those all under one umbrella. So we are working on that, and I hope to get that moving this year. Our current website doesn't have any mobile, what is it called?
Responsive design.
Right.
What's that?
It just makes it look nicer so that you can find things on the
Yeah, you look at it
on
and you
your
see the little website.
yeah.
So it'll fit
on
to your
phone?
screen.
Right.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm trying to do
A lot of
that.
people
Open
do.
up my-
Yeah, kids
Yeah.
are younger.
About half of the people who access their website.
Our current website's how old?
10 years old.
And we have a lot of outages that is not normal for most of these companies that we would be looking at. So.
Okay, so keep that one?
Yep.
Is the goal to finish that up by this year or next year?
The goal is,
That would be my goal.
Okay.
so it was funded in this year's budget, and
Okay.
so goal is to, so we'll change Explorer to complete and put in place or
Good.
whatever it may be.
Okay. Next item, continue performance measurement tools for measuring how we're doing in providing city services. Are those surveys, et cetera?
So we do SurveyMonkey surveys.
Yeah.
And if I was gonna make a pitch, and it's not cheap, there are, firms that do citizen satisfaction surveys. And I'm not talking about, they let you know that there's a SurveyMonkey survey out there. They do all sorts of methods to get a statistically significant response. We get 80 responses on some SurveyMonkey stuff. You can't really use that in any meaningful way. It's expensive, and you have to commit to doing it at least every other year so you can benchmark. Otherwise, a one-off's not gonna do you any good, because you gotta be able to tell if what you did improved.
Yeah, of course.
So that is something that's out there.
When you say costly,
How much?
$50,000 or more.
And you have to do it every other
Initially
year.
or a year?
Yes,
or
every time you
do
redid it, it's a
Wow.
extensive manpower. It's a lot more. We could do a demo at a commission study session of sort of what these entail. And so give you a better idea. They don't just ask 30 questions and give you the answers. There's a lot more that goes into it, so we could explore it. It's a hefty cost.
I don't see any problem with exploring it, having a study session or devoting somewhat of a study session to it, just to see what the capabilities are. So that's what I would like to do as one commissioner. What about you?
I'm open.
yeah, I'd say, let's hear more about it.
Yeah.
That nut that we have to hit at 50 grand is,
It just seems like a lot for sure.
Yeah.
70.
I'm just throwing that out there.
What?
Yeah, we'll get you
yeah, of
some
course
sort
it
of-
will, once they get you.
Because they got you,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
And,
I don't think we need it.
yeah, I think there's consensus to hear more, but I'm not necessarily 100% in the camp of Commissioner Dedeker that we don't need it, but I know that there tends to be somewhat of a vocal group in the minority on social media that complain about absolutely everything. But it gets a lot of play because they just play themselves around. But when I talk to many people, the city's not perfect, I'm not saying that, but we're pretty damn good, in my opinion.
And I think that's the best survey you can do,
Yeah.
by us being out on the street, talking to people. And it doesn't cost 50 grand.
Yeah,
And we get bad reports, Paul hears it.
yeah. But tell us what it's gonna be. We got a consensus of doing that, but not a consensus necessarily to go forward on, and give us your.
Well, we looked at I'll give you an example, we looked at, retail recruitment firms, and we brought a one or two in, and the commission decided at the end of the day, it wasn't worth the money, and I think that was the right decision,
Yeah.
I think that was staff recommendation, but, it's something new that we've not done and wouldn't hurt to
Yeah,
hear.
look at, let's hear it, and then, that retail recruitment, that was a very good example, they wanted 100 grand, or whatever it was,
Right.
And we figured out we can provide that and do the same thing they can do. Okay, so we, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
streamline registration, reservation, and payment processes for all services, and that's working on the Munis program, that's continuing, we should keep that.
Yeah, keep us moving forward. Those modules, even though they're part of Munis, each module costs money, and we're able to, justify that by it's a commission priority, so that's why we've included 25,000 for our Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
type thing.
When was that system instituted? How long ago? Just, the Munis in general?
2015.
Okay. And you've been pretty satisfied with it, or, there's always,
Oh, it was
I mean,
amazing
I know
improvement.
from my school district experience that with those
Yes.
type of, enterprise
Absolute-
solutions,
yes.
there's always a lot of challenges, so I'm
Big
sure you're working
improvement
through
over
there.
what we had before.
Yeah, we had an old system that's probably
Yeah.
Oh, that was
25
horrible.
years, one of the first.
It's been great.
Okay.
Openness, make development regulations available online in real time to public, staff, and development community.
Julie can, give you some.
Right now, we've got them online. They're in the Muni code that the clerk's office has all of our ordinances on there. It's a little bit cumbersome. Part of that is just due to the nature of Muni code, and our current website isn't really structured to have more interactive formats. So this is something that could tie in with the redesign we're doing on the website this year. We had looked at a possible option basically a plug-in for our MuniCode system, that could have made them a lot more usable. It was very expensive, and we decided that that wasn't really, what we were needing to do. There are some much cheaper alternatives, basically publishing them as, an ebook, makes them really searchable and user-friendly, and those are things we could do for under $500. And that's something that would probably work, tie in well to getting a new website up. So that's something that, still looking at, and hopefully once we get the new website up and have a better space to house, our planning documents, that we could do something like that fairly easily and cheaply.
Any questions? Do we continue this?
Continue it.
Yep. Next item, thank you. Implement options for better tracking of code enforcement activities.
And that's something that we're still working on too with Munis. Now we've got a couple of years under our belt using that, and it does provide better tracking. So, we're still really getting a handle on what data is useful to pull out of that. Paul gets our monthly reports, and so if there is specific data that the commission would like to see in terms of our tracking and what we're doing, let us know, let me know, and we'll see what we can do in terms of providing that, data that would be useful to you as commissioners. But yeah, that's something that, we're just kind of continuously working on. I'm not sure it needs to still be a goal, since that's just kind of an ongoing something that we do.
We used to receive about an inch thick packet once a month, and unless you're a PhD candidate in rocket science, it was I don't want to say difficult. It's very difficult to read for
Sure.
our limited brains of the commission here. Is there a report that we can get, commissioners, that kind of spotlights it, make it, remember the one we used to get, it was,
Yeah.
Not
Oh,
sure.
yeah, you were mentioning.
Do they get the monthly reports that we do?
At one point, they did.
Okay.
yeah, that big thick one that.
Yeah, that was with all this stuff. There is the ability to do summarizations of
review of it
monthly
or something.
reports.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
That would be good.
'Cause
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw that thing, it was.
The monthly
tough to
reports,
read.
the monthly reports
Before I
that
was here.
I give to Paul, it's like 3 pages long.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
I
a
know
pretty,
you're talking.
we've got it broken down into the main categories of the violations that we see. There's just some basic charts kind of showing trends. So if that would be useful, I'm sure Paul could, pass that along. And then once you have a chance to digest that, let me know, or Paul know if there's something else.
I know
that
you
you'd
were
like
also
to-
following some sort of a grid, and I'd like to see it like a city map and see where you're going and, that sort of thing, how you're doing that. I
Yeah,
don't know
each
if
code
that's
enforcement
possible.
officer has we break the city into thirds,
Okay.
not the exact same geographic size because there's more density. But yeah, we do have it broken into thirds by code enforcement officer. I could include, as I do with the transient guest tax report, I could include it as an attachment to the CIM, where we can include it just in your commission packet once a month, if that's something the commission wants to
I
see.
think that'd be good, yeah, as long as it's not this thick.
Yeah, so we try to get that out within the first couple weeks,
Okay.
the next month. So I'll be getting the March report to Paul here in the next week or so, and, he can get that onto you. And
I think it would help us too. I mean, driving around delivering trash bags the other day, I was seeing things and I'm wondering, is this on the list, is this on the list? And if there's any way to look that up and see as a person, Ben, is there any way to do that? for us
There's not,
commissioners?
we can't really put out, or make public individual property violation information, as it relates to private property. As commissioners, if you wanna check, you're always welcome to call me or email me, and I can look that up for you, or, kind of route it through Paul. But it's nothing that we have available on the website that's available for public access.
I wrote my notes on the book.
And
when I
it
turned
can't
around.
be because of the privacy
Where they are.
aspects of it?
Yeah, once we get
Yeah.
to the point of taking something to court, and then that's a public record, then, we can give that information out. But even
I
if
just
someone
wondered if
calls
there's
and
anywhere I could
says,
look it
my
up.
neighbor has this violation, do you have any past violations on them? We can't really give out
Oh,
that
no, I
information.
understand that,
so-
but I didn't know if a
Yeah.
commissioner's bringing it, yeah,
Yeah, you're welcome to ask, but no, there's no way
Okay.
for y'all to look it up.
Right.
really.
got it.
Okay, next item is include a section on the city website to post upcoming bids.
Carlo?
And we're talking about sealed bid that we sent out.
Yeah, a couple years ago, we started putting, or maybe it was just I think it was 2 years ago, we started putting the bid results, the bid tabs on the website, because we got a lot of open records requests for those, and, so it was just something we started putting out there, so that when somebody called, that I could just direct them to where to go find those themselves. So then, after we got that going, it was kind of like, well, why don't we start putting the bids themselves out there too? Because looking at other cities' websites, they do that. So anything that we post, anything we publish in the newspaper for a bid, we automatically just post on our website also. So we can direct anybody that wants to know about any upcoming bids on a particular project, I can just tell them, just watch that section
So
of
we
our
have
website.
completed this.
So we have
This is
completed that,
completed.
yeah.
And it's working.
It's working, yeah. I think, once we get a new website design, right now it's in kind of a difficult place for people to find on their own, and we have to kind of direct them where to find that. But with a new website, I think it'll get a lot more, visibility and be more helpful. But yes, it is there.
Okay.
So it's complete.
So, completed. Next item, list licensed tree trimmers. Provide a link to state licensed roofers on the city website.
That one also is complete. We did that last year, and I think people find that really helpful whenever they're looking for a tree trimmer. We do try to put out every once in a while on social media, if you've got somebody, please check our list, make sure they're licensed with the city, because that means also that they are insured, and make sure that they're kind of on the.
How many licensed tree trimmers do we have approximately?
Off the top of my head, I'm gonna say 25.
Really?
Wow.
Okay.
Not to open a Pandora's box, but are there any other areas that we haven't, that would be helpful in terms of, that's.
To put out on the website.
Yeah, to put out on the
information.
website.
There are other opportunities for things, but I think until we get our new website,
Right.
I've talked to Paul about maybe just putting some statistical data out there that we get a lot of open requests for.
Okay.
But again, it all hinges on getting a new website.
Yeah, there are just a few trades that we license, and a lot of them are handled in the Public Works Office, HVAC, electrical, plumbing. Our trades that we license.
Okay.
And we have state licensed roofers on there?
We have a link to the state website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Roofers, yeah, that's a state requirement.
So that one's completed, is that correct?
That's correct.
Any other items on this?
I'd like,
Go ahead.
before we get to financial management, I would just like to talk a little bit about strategic communication. And Mr. Mayor, you are a really good communicator, and I think all of us commissioners are, we wouldn't be here. But I think that the commission, and particularly the mayor, maybe could take advantage of some opportunities to communicate with the public on a more regular basis. And what I'm talking about is, maybe in this quarterly connection newsletter that goes out, you'd have a short letter, each time that goes out as the mayor of our city. Another thing we could look at maybe would be short podcasts, and that's maybe once a quarter or once every 2 months, and that would be you, but it could also be, us commissioners if we have a particular topic we wanted to talk to the citizens about. And then just periodically, maybe an article for the Leavenworth Times. But I just put that out there because I think we can do a little better job just in terms of communicating with our citizens, because we have a good story to tell. That's all.
I know on that quarterly, where I've written an article for that, when is that coming out?
This week.
This week, it'll be in the mailbox, sorry, did that.
Okay, good.
I know, obviously, we have our commission meetings, we've had public meetings, and, when you ran for office, we had various, what were they? Forums, if you will.
Candidate forums,
And I'm in favor of all that. A podcast, I'm not against it, but I also, I don't know how much value it'll bring. I know that all 5 of us here will listen to it, but I don't know how many more people listen to it.
What do you think, Jermaine?
Have a TED Talk?
I'm very supportive of it, and I know there's a new generation, that's they're actually getting involved in politics. And I know one of the things that worked for me was through social media.
Well,
so to actually relay the messages some type of way through Facebook Live, podcasts, I think it'll definitely be helpful. And to actually inform people on a lot more, especially this new era of generation.
Yeah, I know we have a PIO that does a very good job with the City of Leavenworth website, Facebook page. They respond and put things on that. As we all know, social media is a double-edged sword. I mean, it's a good place to put the information out. It's not necessarily a good place to dispel information. You know, I see things on there and my family said, look at this, you know, they're saying this, and you know it's wrong. And I have made the mistake once or twice of saying, you know, this is wrong, and then, you know, wrong. And it's one of those things you cannot dispel a myth. I like the city website, or not necessarily the website, I do like that. The Facebook page, the official things, but as for me or any, and I think it's a personal decision, patrolling social media and you see something that's not right, and should you respond, that is your personal decision on how you do it, but I also know that at times it doesn't work. I mean,
And the only thing I can say is that when you, I mean, we've had issues in the past where commissioners have put stuff on social media and they've been wrong. I mean, out and out wrong. And when I put something out, even regard to the KCATA, I've run it past the mayor and the city manager so that, you know, because we are all one body and we, you know.
That's what I wouldn't advocate anything else but that. That's not, you know, I'm just talking about, you know, a unified message, and I do think we could, I mean, for a podcast, a short podcast, I think we could put it out on our city website. But I agree. We're not gonna, I don't wanna go out, you know, individually as a commissioner. I'm talking about controlled, targeted, you know, kind of regular and recurring communication, not overdoing it, but doing it a little bit more than we have been, so.
I'm very willing to do a, you know, 3 to 5 minute podcast. I wouldn't wanna go into a 30-minute diatribe.
I got it.
You know, once a month or something that then gets included on the website, somebody can click on.
Upcoming projects and whatnot.
Yeah, projects, and on the Facebook page, things like that.
That's
and, I have no problem doing that.
So, from my perspective, I need to know, you say that's okay, who's doing it? Are commissioners, do they need to get it pre-cleared, you know, because what I'm trying to avoid is any commissioner saying to me, coming to me and say, hey, I want to do a podcast today.
No, I think it should be the mayor, and it's something that's coordinated with the city manager's office on.
Exactly.
Let's talk about projects or happenings. I don't want to address, you know, somebody has a complaint about their neighbor's yard or something like that. Yeah, just that it's and it's kind of reviewed with you, and you know, potentially that we don't violate any legal things too.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah,
the city attorney's also
make sure
be controlled. I agree.
And I don't want it to be so controlled that it's very vanilla.
Right.
You know, it's got to have a little bit of meat in it.
And the
Just
mayor
read
will
the
ask us
community of event.
will ask us in terms of things that we might want him to talk about on the podcast, so, but he's the, you guys are the gateway. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Okay, next, financial management, create investment policy.
I have a draft form of that, that's ready to be reviewed and then brought to the commission for approval.
Okay.
So do we remove it or just put in review, or review and implement?
Yeah, Ruby's had them done for a while. We've had a lot of stuff. You know, I probably could have. I just need to schedule it.
Okay.
We did do. I think last year before we switched. I think we did like 4 or 5 policies last year. Ruby's created a lot of good internal control policies. We did purchasing policy. All these kind of different policies. So these are the last group, and then we'll put them all together, our financial policies. So we just need to get them in front of you.
Okay, thank you. Establish uniform case management policy.
It should be cash management policies.
Okay.
That's the
Cash.
same.
Oh, sorry.
That's the same we have.
Mine says case, is yours?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
That's also a draft format, and this, so is the number 3. Those are already in a draft format, and we'll get those reviewed and brought for approval.
How much do you handle? A lot of cash, or different departments do?
We don't handle cash, but a lot of cash. We oversee the other departments who do.
Parks and Rec are probably the biggest
Parks,
users.
And Carla really oversees the cash that comes in through the clerk's office, but that she works really closely with Karen to make sure that everything's correct. And probation handles cash, the court system handles cash, so we have just different departments that have cash, and so this is just a procedure to help give them guidelines on how to keep internal controls in place and minimize risk.
Yeah, okay.
Does the city have an audit every year from?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
Back
that's what we're working on now.
Burbage and Trahan.
Okay.
These are our
speaking agency. Okay, next, prepare a long-term financial plan that incorporates the long-term capital improvements plan.
We did that in 2016, so this is just a matter of updating it. Once I have final 2017 numbers, we'll get those updated, and it'll be a continuous process.
So this is an annual thing that we'll get, and when will we get that approximately?
As soon as I can have audited numbers, the auditors will be here next week, well, the next 2 weeks.
So
They've
in
all
June
gone
or
through-
so, we'll probably have, okay, before budgeting times, okay. Any other questions or comments? Ideas? Okay, do you have anything for us?
No, is there any questions that you have, or anything in particular you'd like to see from us?
From the finance department?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, other items receiving general support. Number one, schedule city attorney to conduct periodic training regarding advisory board's scope of our authority, duties, and responsibilities. This includes the Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Preservation Commission. I know this was one of my goals over the last couple of years, because sometimes the Planning Commission would meet and they say, oh, you know, we wanted to approve it, but we can't because our hands are tied, when in fact they were, I don't want to say misinformed, but they were misinformed. And we've used the city attorney a couple times to meet with some of these different commissions on things they can and cannot do. It's not just, the decisions aren't necessarily black and white. They have some room to make some decisions based on facts presented.
We should provide training to them.
Yeah, and we need to continue, I think, continue doing so as these people turn over. We have agreed to keep with that?
I would say, yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
In terms of the advisory boards, and we had some recommendations and we approved some people about a month ago, but I'm unclear. I mean, I think it's rather ad hoc in terms of our current procedures when there are vacancies on those advisory boards. I'd just like to see it be a little more formal, and for us as commissioners to at least be able to discuss those, those people that are recommended for those various advisory boards. So that's one thing. Maybe it doesn't have to do with a goal, but I thought I'd bring it up since we're talking about advisory boards. I just like this because, it's just important to me as a commissioner to have some input.
Just to meet them at least.
Yeah, I don't know that historically we haven't called them in. I think the policy, I don't want to say the policy, but the past practices have been that everyone has, I think that each of the commissioners they know who's on the boards and the commissions and who's occupying them when their term is up. And I know that anybody that's sat in the mayor's position would be willing to take a recommendation from any of the commissioners or from city staff on filling this, and the mayor normally does the nominating, and it goes from there.
I didn't even know that there were vacancies. I mean, just to get to the process.
I got it.
Yes.
4 or 5 pages long.
Yeah, I understand that, but I just didn't even know that we had vacancies, and I'd like to be part of that process. And I don't necessarily need the person to come in. I mean, I'd like to see maybe a resume. I don't want to say fight to get people to serve on these, but I don't want to say fight is the right term, but it's I mean,
It's a time enduring thing.
I finally got one to sit on one now after 2 or 3 weeks.
And I'd like to be able, maybe we can help.
Yeah, get a copy of that, or Ms. Williamson will get a copy to all the commissioners of the opening boards, and then please, if you'll see when their term expires, and if I added up all the people there, I'd say there's 150 people. I'm making a grab of all the commissions. And I'd say 20 to 30 of them will expire this year, 20 to 30. Every year, there's probably 20 to 30 that, it's an ongoing process.
Right.
And,
We could probably simplify that by just sending out a list of upcoming vacancies in the next year.
That's
fine,
that's fine, yeah.
And I'll take recommendations.
Okay.
And I know
Yeah, I did too when I was in there.
Yeah,
and-
okay, that's
But
fine.
we put out, they apply online, so we have, and in the office, so we have their resumes and their information. And I had a goal I was reviewing, we probably all should get a copy of the list, but I was reviewing, everybody who was on there and looking to see if there was some diversity on there. Are there old people, young people?
Yeah, exactly.
Are there black, white, are there minorities? Are we diversified? And looked at that on each one of my committees and advisory boards, and then tried to make sure that was done.
This was when you were mayor?
Yes,
Commissioner
but the
Bauer,
mayor, each mayor has
a little different way.
different way of doing it and a way of looking at who applies, and of course you get
Without being
somebody that you know
overburdensome,
will
I
do
want to
good.
help the mayor and the rest of the commission with that process.
Plus I
get a
tried to
list of
find
each one of the
somebody-
commissioners, get the
Try
opening.
to find somebody who knew about things too.
It might, it's just as easy to give you the whole list, you can just look the date that
we can
term
highlight
expires, if you can,
Yeah.
with the access, program or something.
And if
just
you know
show that.
people who are
Yeah,
interested
I do
or
know
are
a few people.
knowledgeable in that area.
Absolutely, yeah, that's.
Just some of them we don't. I don't do anything with the plumbing board.
Yeah.
Forget that.
Yeah.
The
Do we
plumbers
still need the
that.
plumbing board?
And
We
for
do,
the,
we do.
yeah,
No,
we
we
do.
do.
Okay.
There are probably 30 boards, I'm. sorry,
26, I think.
How many, 26? Okay,
I remember.
and when, Commissioner Bowder says, they apply online, I can go in there and there aren't any applications.
Well, that's
there
where
might be a few,
yeah,
so, you're out recruiting
Right, that's
quite
what I'd like
often.
to do that.
And of the 26 boards, there's probably a half a dozen of them that meet with great regularity.
Right.
The other ones don't meet with great regularity, but I think all of them are necessary
Yes,
at
okay.
times they have to meet, but
Sure.
things Planning Commission meets monthly, Parks and
Right.
Rec Board, Board of Zoning Appeals is a board that, if Board of Zoning Appeals rules against you on something, they can't even bring it to the commission, they have to take it to court, they have more power than the commission.
The Community Development Board, right? With the-
No, it's Board of Zoning Appeals is
Okay.
different than community development, but there's those types of boards, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's some boards that, based either off of state statute or by our ordinance, the members can only serve for a certain number of terms, and then they have to be replaced. Others don't have that
Yeah.
restriction, so if somebody's on the board and they want to be reappointed, we typically have.
Not always.
But not always. So,
Alright.
there's just kind of, there isn't really any particular standard when you look at the list, so I'll try to make some notes also when I send that list out of the ones that are coming up. Do they need to be, have they served the term that is, and
Specified,
they can't,
yeah.
if it's specified, they
Right.
have to be replaced, so I'll put that into the,
Cool.
into that list also when I send it.
Okay, thank you.
Great,
Thank you. Provide annual updates, we have Main Street that comes in annually and provides us their.
Annually and at the budget, so it's really twice. That's
Yeah.
why we moved
Yeah,
them to the
those are
beginning of the year,
annual.
because they also come in the summer.
Yeah.
That's good.
Semi-annual, updates from the library and LCDC, that's every 6 months. And does one of them include the budget?
They also come in the budget, so
So
those are
we
actually
get
three times.
3 times?
They don't
Okay.
do the full presentation at the budget, but they do a,
Yeah.
yeah.
The last one, provide quarterly updates, school board, Dr. Roth or his designee will come to the, commission, and we've all witnessed that, and I know that city manager also goes to the school board quarterly and gives them an update, and that's, good for both organizations. A couple things that we talked about a little bit that I would like to see add as one of the goals, for the city manager to meet with the judge, the municipal prosecutor, to, determine, are there some things that we can do to I guess, beef up our code enforcement activities, the turnaround time on from when a person is cited until it's resolved. I know there's some due process has to occur, but does due process take 4 and 6 weeks? I mean, can we speed that up?
What can we do with repeat offenders?
And repeat offenders, can we slap them a little bit harder? Those types of things, anything to, what did you say?
There's a lot of them, but I won't go.
But anything that we can do to get a stronger handle on the blight in town. There are properties that people just are not taking care of, whether they're owners or absentee landlords, whoever they are, and we need to see if we can beef that up. And do we beef it up to the point that, do we need another code enforcement officer? We have 3, we go to 4, but I don't want to say does it pay for itself, but I mean, we do get those fines. But we'd like to see more action in code enforcement. I'm not saying they're not doing their job, but what can we do to make sure that the job that they're doing is more effective? In other words, people get the word quicker that they better take care of the problem, or the judge will. My thoughts on that. I don't know if there's consensus on
Yes,
that.
I support that.
Those are the only 2 that I wanted to add that aren't specifically on here. Commissioner Bowder?
I don't have anything else.
Commissioner Dedeky?
You covered mine.
Commissioner Wilson? Commissioner Griswold?
The only thing is this, we talked about the appearance of the city. I would just like to think, for us as commissioners and also the staff, to think critically and creatively about, without spending a lot of money, because I don't think what I'm talking about when I drive around town, in terms of the signs, the litter, that type of thing, maybe there's some way, Leavenworth has got great organizations, volunteer organizations that are community focused. Maybe we just do a little better job communicating that there are opportunities to help with the beautification of the city. And Steve and I have talked a little bit about that, so I would just reemphasize that, and I think we just need to be a little bit more creative in terms of how to deal with that situation.
You mentioned about the signs. You see some of the dilapidated broken signs. And, I'm sure I've seen the same ones, and I may be just somewhat blind to it. When you see them, call Public Works. I mean, they have a whole sign department. They'll go out and replace it. Because I know I've seen some in the past, and called them, hey, this one is broken half, and 48 hours later, there's a new sign up. They still make their own signs.
And I'm not making this up. It actually happened this morning. Public Works has finished a citywide sign inventory.
Okay.
I mean, when I heard you bring that up, I thought.
I bet that person retired.
So,
well, just look along Metropolitan. The signs are crooked, and I'm not saying this to be real. It's constructive criticism, and it's an area that I think we can take care of. Without, I mean, I know it's gonna take the people, so, and some of it's just straightening the signs that are there, so.
Yeah, Mr. McDonald?
I walked around too many motor pools, Mark, so.
As Paul mentioned, we have, there was a mandate from our friends in Washington that we had to inventory all of the critical signs in the community and rate their reflectivity to light at night. It's been a while, but we did complete that, something on the order of 7,000 signs. And it's kind of interesting where you end up with that at the end of the day. If I can find my sheet, which I'm too far. And that doesn't include the name sign. That's a whole different thing. And
what's the name? What do you mean?
Like a street name.
Oh, okay.
Street name, yeah.
We have 7,000.
7,000 signs, and they kind of break them down into interesting categories. Regulatory signs that are black and white, like speed limits.
Yeah.
Regulatory signs that are red and white, basically stop signs or do not enter signs, and then warning signs like a yield or hill ahead sort of thing. So if you take the 7,000 signs that we inventoried, about 2,200 of them fall into those 3 categories. And of those 2,200, about 600 of them don't meet the reflective thing. So we're going to propose a thing to address that. And signs are about $50 a piece, and a sign in a pole can cost you in the vicinity of $150 to $200 So add a couple zeros to the 588, and all of a sudden you got a lot of money you're looking at, but.
The government's subsidizing this, right?
Of course they are, sir. But anyhow, we are proud to report that we've completed the inventory. We're doing a quality control check now where they're going back to see what was missed during the inventory has been installed since that section of town was inventoried, and then we'll do a sweep of those and update.
But if you hear from citizens or, that, hey, this sign's broken or all this doesn't make any sense, I know I have a few times I've turned in a heck of a lot more blighted properties than I have.
Yeah, right,
broken signs,
and they're,
but
right, and
they
they're
have
more important.
responded.
I mean, I'm not saying that they're more important, but.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying, I just say, my experience has been that they've reacted, maybe because I'm a commissioner, but I think,
The signs of these priority signs are important for public safety, and we try to get after them very quickly. So we appreciate you calling them in. If other people have, they see a missing sign that is important, like a stop sign or something of that nature.
Street signs too?
Street name signs, it might take a little longer to get to them, but yes, sir, call the service center, you can send them an email or call and leave a message at night, whatever makes your world work, and they will deal with them.
Who would, if we sent an email, who would it be sent to?
City manager, I may copy him, but.
Okay.
It's on the.
My chain of command is right through.
All right, that's good.
That's fine, but the citizens can do that, but there are some links on our webpage, or if nothing else, you can send it to, I think, one of the generic numbers on our webpage.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Richmeyer, you have any questions? Need any quotes or anything?
We worried about today.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and,
Thank you.
good session, and we'll see everyone, Saturday morning, once again, is the citywide cleanup, kickoffs at 8:30 at Warren, and, what else? That's it. We're adjourned.
Yeah, I'll probably. Ooh, that's a long one.
I know.